Hello. Hello, everybody. It's me. It's your host. It's me. I'm Jake. And welcome to Falling in Love With, the new show where I fall in love with my guest, and hopefully you do too. And maybe they fall in love with me as well, but that is not necessarily the point. I think the idea of the show is that we, meaning you and me, the host, will fall in love with the guest. And if they happen to fall in love with me too, that'd be great. Or if they fall in love with you, the chat, that could be interesting too. But basically it's a show where we are going to talk to our guests. We're going to ask them some questions based on a famous list of 36 questions, which have been scientifically proven to make people fall in love with each other. So there's hard data here. I did editorialize the questions a little bit so that they are a little bit more fit for Twitch streaming. But I think overall it's going to be a pretty good time. We've got some sound alerts down below. If you haven't checked those out, you're welcome to take a look now. Some of them are a speed round where we'll ask some special not speed related, but speedily asked questions to our guest. You, the chat, can ask a question if you'd like. A special add one to the 36. Or maybe replace one of the 36. I'm not really sure how it's going to work. We'll test it out. And then there's a pickup line sound alert where myself and my guest will have to give a pickup line to each other. One little bit of housekeeping I want to do first is make the chat a little bit bigger so that I can see what's going on. Hold on for that. Okay, that didn't help. Let's try this. And it's not getting any bigger. And we're gonna try one more time here. And there we go. He's making us bigger. Oh wow, says Kevin. And I'm back. Okay, so this is potentially gonna be a very long stream. I don't know how long it's gonna take to answer these questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome our guest. You may know him from sketch comedy videos, his multiple podcasts, including It's on a List, which I've appeared on. You might know him from being on this show many times. I think he may be the most appeared guest on the show. That's not how you say it, but he's been on the show quite a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Noah Marger.
Yo, yo, yo. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Noah, thank you for being the first guest on the show. Look at that. I got these zooms. Look at that. I can that's pretty cool.
You're
right?
wild with it right now, to be honest with you. This is crazy.
I'm on the other side of the room from my computer, and yet with the power of technology, here I am. We're zooming around.
Congrats.
Noah, are you ready to fall in love?
Yes. Can I make it very clear that I was not the first choice for this in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I was really glad that you asked me once I found out that, the other guy couldn't make it. So, yeah, I think I'm ready to fall in love, though, to answer your question.
An interesting thing about love is it's very rare that you find love the first place that you look for it. Would you say that? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would actually have to agree with that. You have gotten me at my own game already.
Sometimes you have to look in multiple places. Sometimes there's unrequited love, like when you reach out to a preferred guest, someone who you'd rather have on as your first guest, but then they say that they're busy and don't really give a sort of straight answer, just kind of an ambiguous, I got stuff going on type answer. And then you have to go to your second choice. But a great choice nonetheless, and maybe that's actually who you're really in love with.
Yeah, I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, I was super into this girl, and I asked her to go see that movie Warm Bodies with me. Do you remember that movie?
No, I don't remember that movie.
That was the zombie one with Nicholas Hoult was in it. I don't remember who the female lead was.
Yes, actually I do. I didn't see it, but I know of that movie.
Yeah, based on Romeo and Juliet, that very funny classic play. Mm-hmm. And I remember she said yes, if my best friend can come. And then she did not show up to the movie, and I saw Warm Bodies by myself. So that's kind of what this is like for me right now.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I think there'll maybe be an opportunity for you to expound on that experience throughout these questions.
Okay, good. Very cool.
We've got just some comments coming in from the chat that I want to acknowledge. Kevin remembers that movie, so you found somebody.
Thank you.
To relate with you there. Maybe already a connection happening there.
Damn.
Thin Crisp, or Think Risp, saying Warm Bodies. Yes. So another fan of Warm Bodies.
Honestly, thank God for the chat.
Yeah, they are really going to be, I think, a potential third love interest in this relationship.
A love triangle's forming already.
So before we do jump into these questions, we have one more order of business. We have to, of course, do our chemistry check. And Noah, can you still hear me? I don't know if I can.
Yes, I still can, yes.
Great, and I can still hear you. So this is the chemistry check in chat. Just based on that little interaction at the beginning, we don't have a lot to go on here, but this is sort of an initial test of our chemistry. We want to see how we're feeling about our chemistry so far. So this is before we've asked any of the 36 questions, just on love at first sight. Go ahead and vote, I guess.
Is 1 the least amount of connection, or is 5 the least amount?
I think 1 is the least amount, and 5 is like a perfect connection. We're soulmates. We're made for each other.
Perfect. Go ahead and spam 5, chat, if you can hear me.
You're welcome. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if we started at 5 and then got progressively lower over the course of the questions. That might be interesting.
Yeah,
3 is probably a safe bet right now. Really not committal one way or the other.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're having fun, but it's like maybe I'll come back. No one knows.
We're not sure yet. Yeah, I mean everything's fair though. This is all based on first impressions. We did have a pretty decent rapport right off the top. We talked about that movie. You kind of opened up already a little bit about an experience that you had.
Yeah, with a girl who is not you and has forgotten long about me. So really glad I started with that.
Well, it seems like the chat is agreeing that was a connection of some sort. We're, well, maybe not actually. We're tied between mediocre and an excellent connection. I'm gonna close it out there.
Perfect.
So,
it's inconclusive.
Inconclusive, which makes sense because it is the very first chemistry check. But of course, there will be more chemistry checks along the way. After each round of 12 questions, there's 36 questions total. After each round of 12, we will do another chemistry check, and maybe thoughts will change from our audience about how it is that we are connecting this evening. So we got to jump into these questions. So the questions, by the way, are supposedly they get progressively more like intimate and like. I guess intimate is probably the best word for it, but they get more not serious necessarily, but so these first ones are supposed to be softballs.
All right, let's hit some homers, baby.
Okay, here's question 1. You like that sound effect I added?
Yeah, are you supposed to read that? Am I supposed to read that? Is anyone supposed to read that?
I'm gonna read it to you, and then you will answer, and then maybe you read it back to me.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that.
Or maybe I'll read it to you, and then after you're done answering, you can just say, "What about you?"
No, I like the idea of me reading it back to you in full after we've already established the full question.
Okay,
I'm gonna do that.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so I'm gonna read it to you now. Who is somebody you would really like to have dinner with?
Okay, so not to be a stinky right off the bat, but do they have to be alive?
No. Let's say that they do not have to be alive. They can be living or they can be dead. And I'll even say they can be fictional. They don't even necessarily have to be a real person.
Wow. Okay.
Actually, no. That would complicate it too much. That's too much power. They have to be real, but they can be dead or alive.
They can be dead or alive. Okay. I think I'd really like to have dinner with. Are you leaving already? Come on, man.
I'm actually not really interested in this answer. I had to pick something. All right. Go ahead. Sorry. Please excuse me. God, that's terrible. I can already see our chemistry meter starting to.
Well, it's like we literally just sat down, we ordered drinks, and you're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to go in the bathroom for the rest of the day. That's what it felt like.
I have to freshen up. No, please, go on.
You know, I don't know why I thought that the first question was going to be way easier than this, because I never know what a good answer to this question is. And I feel like there's like a couple stock answers that I could always give. Like, I think people always say like Marilyn Monroe, Albert Einstein, and then like one other person. But
wow, those are two people who I would never think to choose.
Really? I feel like
that you would choose, or that those are people that you hear broadly, those are like general good answers?
No, generally. Have you ever seen Adaptation with Nick Cage?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember when he goes to meet Meryl Streep and he asks her that question, and it's like, who would you have dinner with? And she says, I think she says Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and they're like, that's the most obvious answer. But I actually legitimately would love to have dinner with Mr. Connor O'Malley. Actually, I think that he would be a very interesting guy to sit down, pick his brain a little bit. I think he's doing maybe the smartest political satire right now. So that's who I want to sit down with. I want to know, how did you fall in love with A.D. Bryant? That's what I'm interested in.
That would be the first thing you want to know about?
Yeah, I'd be like, how did that happen? You guys don't seem compatible on the surface. Maybe there's a love connection there that I could learn from.
Yeah, he should host a show like this. We could maybe learn a thing or two about him and his relationship.
That's exactly right.
All right, well, let's go ahead. That's a great answer, by the way. I almost want to steal that answer, but I'll choose somebody else for the sake of the conversation.
Thanks.
But here, we'll do now. You can read it.
All right. Question 1: who is somebody you would really like to have dinner with?
Yeah, you were right. This is definitely the way to do this.
This is definitely the way.
Someone that I would really like to have dinner with, who is alive, is Steve Martin. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think he has a really interesting. I think I really like his style of comedy, and that it's like very silly and like not necessarily toothless. Like he does a lot of parody and satire, but it's like very. It's not like mean ever, really.
Sure.
Which I think is cool. And I just admire that he just like kind of left the game and everybody sort of like respects him. He did a couple kids movies and then pieced out and just started doing banjo music.
Yeah.
And I would want to talk to him about basically just like his relationship with comedy and how he has kind of like left. He still does some comedy stuff, but like I would be interested because I feel like a lot of comedians get pigeonholed into comedy or like have to do comedy forever, and then you have people like Jim Carrey who seem to have gone crazy trying to like escape the like pigeonhole, the boxing
bubble.
The bubble of comedy. So I think that'd be.
Or you have someone like Adam Sandler who continues to just make steaming piles of whatever, and then occasionally gives us something like Uncut Gems or Punch Drunk Love, and you're like, oh, you actually are one of the most brilliant artists to ever walk this face of the earth.
Did you see that tweet today? That was, I think it was a retweet of something Adam Sandler said, but he was saying like he was gonna make revenge. He was gonna have revenge for not being nominated for Uncut Gems and make the worst movie ever.
Yeah, I remember like right before the nominations came out, he threatened, he's like, man, if I'm not nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars, I'm going to make the worst movie of all time. So I hope he legitimately follows up on that.
I think I saw, that was what the tweet was. It was just like images from his next movie.
Oh,
like,
it's the Halloween movie, right?
Yeah,
Hubie Halloween
movie, yeah.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah,
and we're getting Borat 2 maybe at some point. Did you see that?
Chris was just telling me about that today. I'm very curious to see what that's going to be like.
Do you know either of the Zachu brothers, either Sergio or Oliver?
Mm-mm.
Apparently they're extras in that movie, so it is legitimately real. This is not like some false report that came out. I don't know if we're ever going to see it, but they're apparently extras in like some chase crowd scene with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, what I was saying to Chris is like, I think they must have had to keep it secret when they were in production because people would be on the lookout for Borat, and that's like the whole shtick. But I think even then, maybe it's going to be like more narrative where it's like, or more scripted, like how they did Bruno kind of.
Sure.
Because it's like everybody knows who Borat is. So if you see Borat on the street, it's going to be like obvious.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
is this the amount of time we're going to spend on every single question?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's go on to question 2.
All right, I'm going to ask you this one first.
Okay, I like that.
Question 2. Would you like to be famous? In what way?
It's a good question, Noah. Thanks for asking.
No problem. I can't wait for you to ask me.
I used to really want to be famous, I think, in just the way that like a kid sees people on TV and is like, that would be cool to be on TV. But the more that I've been like tangentially part of the entertainment industry and like known other people to, not that I know famous people really, but have been closer to like the people who know people who are famous.
Right.
Pretty much everything I hear about it makes it sound like a terrible experience to be famous. And just like really fucks with your sense of self and like psychology. Yeah. So I think to be well known in a small group of like comedians, for example, like
sure.
in a scene, I think it would be cool to be famous within a scene where you are well liked and respected among people who you like and respect. But to be just like famous in the way that like Brad Pitt is famous, where like just random people on the street will just come up to you and ask for your autograph, would suck.
No, 100%. That makes total sense.
Don't actually answer right now until
I literally almost did, and then I was like, nope, Jake has to ask me the question.
Sorry, hold on. Would you like to be famous? And in what way? This is working really good so far, I think.
Great question, man. Just great question. Yeah, basically the same thing you just said in that. When you're younger, you think that is like the end goal, is to be famous. You know, that's like the thing you're striving for. And just like you, the more I grow up and the more that I work in entertainment and the more that I have life experience, the more I value privacy and the more I value time that I can just spend and expectations that come along with being famous, that could potentially come along with being famous. Just kind of seems exhausting, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like a lot of like big time celebrities must have lived similarly to what we are doing now with COVID and everything, where it's like pretty much only going out if they need things. They're getting other people maybe to do things for them because they have the power and the money. But yeah, I don't think I'd necessarily want it. But like you, I would like to be thought of and respected in the same way. But if I could come without fame, that would be the best possible situation, I think.
Yeah, to just be like, almost like a mysterious figure who everybody, that they know you, but they don't bother you at all.
Yeah, Terrence Malick has kind of seemed to figure that out a little bit. That guy does like no interviews. There's like barely any photos of him that exist. He stopped directing for 20 years and just did whatever he wanted. So maybe that's the actual model that we should all be striving for.
The Terrence Malick model of fame?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's move on. I like that answer. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. You actually are going to ask me this question.
I'm going to actually ask you this third question right here, which of course is... before making a telephone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say? And why do you do that, if in fact you do?
First of all, great question.
Thank you.
Second of all, I remember if it's like a high stress situation, I remember in my past I used to try and rehearse what I was going to say, and I remember doing it and it just kind of blowing up in my face. Like I was like, oh, I've only rehearsed up until this point, and I have no idea how to like basically improv this. Yeah, exactly. And so I really try not to at this point. I like have a general idea of what I want to say when I get on the phone, especially if it is like a more serious, high pressure situation, or maybe even related to like a job or something like that. So I try not to. It's blown up on me in the past. I can't remember exactly why, but I try not to rehearse. Hey, quick question for you. Before making a telephone call, do you ever rehearse what you are going to say? And why?
Thanks for that question.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I won't like audibly rehearse, like I won't say stuff out loud necessarily, like specific lines, but I will definitely imagine the conversation, I would say, in my head, almost like
Sure.
Not even with specific like words, or it's just kind of like a vibe of like, I want to talk about this, or I hope they ask me about that, and if they did, I would kind of say something like this. But I don't really rehearse out loud. Sometimes I'll rehearse character bits, or I did before I got fired from Everything Now show.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. How is that going ever since you've been fired from Everything Now?
We're not really allowed to talk about it outside of...
No problem. I will shut the fuck up then about it.
There's just like a whole NDA thing that the Mr. Nice Guy made us sign, so I can't... I regret even bringing it up, but yeah,
it's really too bad to hear about what happened to Sydney on that one.
Yeah, can't talk about it too much. In fact, we should probably go on to the next question, which was...
So, I'm going to ask you this one. That makes sense. Question 4. What would constitute a, quote, perfect day for you?
Thanks for that. A perfect day. I would say I'm not typically a morning person, but...
Tell me about it.
But, well, hold on. Wait for me to ask you
okay.
before you relate to me. I think that's a flaw with this, is you definitely... It's instinctual to want to relate to what your partner is saying in conversation, but it feels like it sort of defeats the second part of asking each other this. I think
I will never speak then.
No. I think we should do the opposite. I think we should only ask the question one time, and we should just we should switch off who asks the question first.
Okay.
But we won't ask the question twice. We will just naturally relate to each other and speak on the subject.
Okay.
Does that
Starting on this question.
Starting on this question. So
okay,
I will
perfect.
answer now. You jump in.
Yeah, that seems like the natural human way to figure this out.
In the way that two people might have a natural conversation.
Sure.
And this is dynamic. And Nuclear Goo is very excited about the new format. And this is kind of how art is created in a way, is that it's actually collaborative and ever-changing. So,
that's true.
What was the question again? Perfect day?
Yeah, what for you, quote-unquote, constitutes a perfect day?
I think a perfect day... by definition, nothing goes wrong, so that's a big part of it.
Sure.
Which is like hard to do in a full 18-hour span of being awake, or however long people are typically awake. I would wake up early, even though I'm not typically a morning person. I find that when I do bring myself to wake up early and start the day early with like breakfast or doing something, I generally feel good, even though I don't like to do that, because I do like to sleep in bed. But I wake up early, have a delicious, healthy breakfast of some sort, and then, gosh, it's like the perfect day of what you imagine, like what would make you feel good, and then what you want to do, which is like, what you want to do is just kind of like stay in bed and hang out and like watch movies and eat junk food, but also it would be nice to like go outside and like go for a hike. Like that stuff also makes me feel good. I don't know. It's a tough question.
Sure.
I'm gonna throw it back to you and see if what your answer is inspires me at all.
Okay, so if it's a perfect day, then I would wake up and buy the lottery ticket so that I would win the lottery. Yeah. Okay, got you on that one,
You
Buster.
did get me on that, and I didn't even think about that. And so you would win the lottery on that day. But then what do you do the rest of your day?
Well, that is the beauty of the perfect day, is that it's not over after I win the Powerball, you know?
That's true. That's probably how it ends, assuming that the reading of the Powerball numbers typically happens at night, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's on the morning news. I actually don't know when they do that.
I have no idea either. I literally never bought a lottery ticket in my whole life. But because it's the perfect day, I've never bought a lottery ticket in my whole life. Not even a scratcher? Not even a scratcher. I've done a little bit of gambling in my life, but never any lottery, I guess, so to speak. Which I guess gambling is a lottery in that sense as well. But wake up, buy the winning lottery ticket numbers for the Powerball. I would get a workout in, and then it would just be like the best workout I've ever gotten, and it would feel really effortless. You know, it would actually feel just like easy, and it would feel amazing afterward. And then I would just want to spend it with people that I love, you know? I feel like that is like what you would want to do, I feel like, or at least that's what I would want to do. And so spend it with people I love, doing activities with them. You know, I don't really know what that looks like. Maybe, like you said, maybe going for a hike, that would sound like fun.
Would that sound? Is that like an idea of something that sounds fun in theory, or is that something that you genuinely like doing? Hiking.
In theory, it sounds fun. I don't actually love going on hikes, but it is like what you would imagine, like I guess, like a perfect day.
What a perfect person would like to do on their perfect day.
Yeah, I guess if I really am answering this question, not about the Powerball or anything, not having to do with any of that. Honestly, I get up and like minor inconveniences do not occur. Everything just feels a little bit easier, and then I go home and I eat something that tastes good, and then I get a really good night's sleep. Like that. What about that? How's that?
That's great. I mean, yeah, I think you're hitting on sort of like the same thing that I was saying, where it's like any day where literally no bad, annoying shit happens is gonna be pretty great. Like even if it's not win the lotto or like the best things ever happening, if it's just like a normal day where my days are normally pretty fine, but like random annoying shit happens from time to time, and if none of that happened and it was just smooth sailing for all day, and I get to have a nice night of sleep. Beautiful. Perfect day.
That's it, baby. I can't think of anything more perfect, I would say.
I would agree. All right, well, I think we crushed that question.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I think we should move on to question, what are we on, 5?
All right, I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Question 5. When did you last sing to yourself or to someone else?
Okay, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Go away a little bit too fast. The last time I sang to myself... I sing to myself quite a bit in the car, mainly. Whenever I'm in the car, I like to play music and sing along to that music. So I don't know specifically when the most recent time that happened, but it was probably within like the last week.
Do you remember maybe what you were singing?
One of the songs that I really like to sing out loud is "Call Me Al."
Paul Simon song.
Yeah, Paul Simon, not Neil Simon. Paul Simon.
Yeah.
It's a Neil Simon song. The Paul Simon song. I like to sing that one out loud. And I like who does the Deo.
Oh, Harry Belafonte, that song from Beetlejuice, right?
From Beetlejuice. I like Harry Belafonte songs. I like to sing those out loud and sort of shout them in my car.
Those are fun.
What about you? What was the last song that you sang out loud?
Last song I sang out loud, so I don't remember exactly. It was definitely today. I'm always singing stuff. I sing stuff to myself probably every single day, I would say. Something that we've been doing more recently on It's on the List is doing like parody songs that either have to do with having a podcast or Family Guy. And so
your 2 favorite things?
My 2 favorite things in the whole goddamn world, having podcasts and Family Guy. And so my Mason is taking a leave of absence from doing that bit. We actually legitimately discussed the bit like in detail, and he's like, I just don't want to do it right now. I just don't really think I can do it. And I'm like, that's fine, I'll handle it. And so, not to spoil it, but if you are listening to this or watching this and you listen to the pod, the song parody will be a parody of the song 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton this week.
Wow. And get hype, listeners. And we will plug we will plug all of your podcasts, most of your podcasts at the end of the show as well. But I think the real heads are in the chat right now, so if they don't already listen, they should know to go onto our Discord and find that and listen to that.
Yes, please. There's a lot of great episodes with the ENS people and more to come. But I sang that, and then the new Tony Hawk game hit the PS4 recently. Have you been playing that?
No, but I've been watching some people on Twitch play it, and it looks... I joined the Tony Hawk franchise on the 3rd game. So if they do a remake of 3 and 4, which I think they probably will after how successful this one seems to be, I would pick that one up. But the nostalgia is not lost on me, even in those first 2 games, even though I never really played them, because the 3rd one's not much different.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and I think 4 were all relatively the same idea, 2 minutes in each place doing the different objectives. But this new remake has an amazing playlist, just like awesome. And so the song She's Famous Now by Real Big Fish, I don't know if you know that song.
I don't think I do.
I can't tell you the words either, but like the chorus is something to the effect of like, she used to be my girl, but now she's famous, or something like that.
Okay.
And it's like a shitty ska song from the 90s. So that's also been something I've been singing recently.
Hell yeah. And you already sort of touched on it, and my answer is pretty similar in terms of have you sung to anybody recently? And I sang a decent amount on the, or I did before I was fired from
Right.
Now Show.
Right. Sorry about that, by the way.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. You know, to new beginnings, and that's what this
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
In a way.
When God closes the door, he opens a window for sure.
Exactly. And so I used to sing as Charlie Barley.
Right.
At the end, we would do the karaoke bit, and
Yep.
and I would really sing, and like I would try. Sometimes I would do like bit singing, but most of the time I would like actually try to do good singing in that, and that was really fun to sing to the audience. And it sounds like you also sing to your podcast listeners in a way.
I sing to my podcast listeners. I sing to Mason, co-host of It's on the List.
That's also true.
And then whoever the guest is, because I would say 2/3 of the time, if not more, we have a guest. And so the guest gets the privilege of hearing the little parody bit. So yeah, I'm constantly singing to other people as well.
That's good. I think that's healthy.
Thanks.
All right, well, let's move on to question 6.
You're going to ask me, right?
Yes, I will ask you this one. If you were able to live to the age of 90 and retain either the mind or body of a 30-year-old for the last 60 years of your life, which would you want? And this is sort of a confusing question.
Yeah, I was just about to say, that is fucking weird. So let me break that down real quick. So if I live to 90,
yes,
I get to keep either the body of a 30-year-old or the mind of a 30-year-old from age... From what age forward? 60 to 120? Am I going to live to 120?
For the last 60 years of your life. So I guess from 30 on, you would continue being either the mind of a 30-year-old or the body of a 30-year-old.
So that's actually, now that I actually understand what the fuck that means, that's a really tough question, because I do think that saying you're only as old as you feel is like very true.
Yeah.
I mean, even from like 18 to 23, you know, I could see a change in how like my body and my mind like feels, you know, especially after you work full time or whatever.
Totally.
But I'm gonna have to say my mind. I mean, honestly, like I feel like there's more things you can do to help your body as your body ages than your mind as your mind ages. And so if I could retain the mental capacity of a 30-year-old at 90, I would much rather have that. And obviously now that I say that, that's not going to happen for me. I'm going to speak that into existence, and it's just going to go right down the crapper. But probably the mind of a 30-year-old.
I agree. I think yeah, mind in the very latest years, I think, is more valuable than body, because I feel like your mind generally stays pretty sharp. I mean, you know, barring certain medical circumstances for a little while, where I feel like your body after like, even by the time you're 30, might, for a lot of people, start to just like deteriorate. And like by the time you're like, you know, like if you're in your 60s or 70s, it's like your mind could theoretically still be most of the way as sharp as it was when you were 30. But it's hard to imagine somebody who's 70 years old whose body is as physically fit as when they were 30. But in those very late years, I think it's really common that people's mind starts to go like when you're 80 or 90. And it would be nice to it'd be so cool to have a 30-year-old mind. Just be super
Absolutely.
smart.
I mean, memory is like the thing that like almost like keeps us alive, I guess, at a certain point. And so to be able to have the recall that you would be at 30 years old at 90, I feel like your life would be much richer, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I agree. And it seems like Taxman also agrees. Taxman7212 says, mind all day. It all goes down.
Thank you, Taxman.
Downhill after 40, and ain't that the truth?
Hey, ain't they? Don't talk to me until I've had my fucking coffee, you know what I mean?
Is he right, folks?
Am I right, folks?
On to question 7, which of course is, I think I asked you this one. No, I just asked you one.
No, I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Question 7, Jake. Do you have a secret hunch about how you will die?
A secret hunch.
It's kind of a fucked up question,
Yeah,
to be
this
totally
one is
honest.
pretty dark. I don't know. I mean, like, I guess Nuclear Goose says I'll let you know after I get my colonoscopy. And that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like our generation is uniquely in a situation where we might die from the climate change.
I was just about to say climate change is going to kill us, yeah.
I don't know exactly how, but that looms sort of over me. And then like the common medical type stuff. I think there might be like some sort of history of various types of cancer in my family history. But part of me holds out on like, as much as our generation is fucked in terms of like climate change and stuff, I do feel like we're also going to be right on that line of like the first generation that just gets like stem cells that cure everything, or like one of those gene editing things that can just get rid of any disease.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've actually been thinking about this very specifically, this question, and so I would have to say, when bullet trains are introduced to America, I'm going to get caught in between the door and the track of the bullet train, and I'm going to get dragged from the stop.
Between
all
the door
the way.
and the track? How does that work?
I'm like halfway in the train, halfway not in the train.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I'm going to get dragged across the tracks all the way basically to wherever that train is going. Let's say it's the west coast to east coast stop.
So clear across the entire country.
Yeah, well, that's probably, if I'm in LA, which I would hope to be by this time, that is the goal, is to be able to be dragged from west to east. This is how every man in my family has died for the last 400 years, so I have to carry on the tradition.
Yeah, it is important that we carry on our family traditions, because how else will they live on but in our own death?
That's exactly right. Let's move on.
We're going to go ahead and move on. And of course, this is question 8.
Of course.
Which is, name 3 things that you and your partner appear to have in common. So I think, what do we think? Should we do 3 total, or should we each do 3 things?
So we're you and me, as in you and your partner.
That's so,
who
yes.
we're talking
we
about.
are
Okay.
partners in this context.
Well, I know one thing that we absolutely have in common, and that is that we were both raised Jewish.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. I don't know about you, how like intense that was in your house. It was relatively intense when I was younger. Like we would go to services and stuff, and then pretty rapidly, like when I got into like 1st or 2nd grade, it just full on stopped, and I wasn't bar mitzvahed and anything, and we just like stopped going, and we just celebrated the holidays. My grandparents are, go to the services on the high holidays as well. So I don't know how it went down in your house, but I would say I'm culturally Jewish more than anything, but don't really fall into organized religion at all.
I am pretty much in the same boat in terms of how I identify with my Judaism, in that it's much more cultural than spiritual. But I was involved longer than you were. I had a bar mitzvah, and I went to Hebrew school all through. I went to a Jewish preschool, like at my synagogue, and then went to Hebrew school Sunday and Wednesday nights all through grade school up until my bar mitzvah. And then after my bar mitzvah, I just stopped being Jewish, basically. Like after that, I stopped going to temple, stopped going to, occasionally would go for high holiday services, but other than that, and then in college, like completely stopped doing. One time I went, the Laugh Factory hosts, I think it was the Laugh Factory, hosts a high holiday service where they like turn the main showroom into like a synagogue, basically, and they're like,
holy shit.
And I did that with Julie Griner one year, and that was kind of cool.
That's fun though. That's like you would actually want to go to that.
Yeah, it made it at least. I mean, it wasn't like a comedy version of the service. It was just a normal service that happened to take place inside like a strange venue, but that was like, it made it interesting.
Sure.
Another thing that you and I have in common is that we both went to the same university, and more specifically, we both went to the same film school in that university.
That's very true. I was a film production directing emphasis major, and you were a TV writing production major, right?
That's right, and so that is a difference that we had.
What was your, I mean, we've talked about this off pod, so to speak, off mic. But just generally, what was your experience, I guess, in that major or at this college that we both went to?
I think overall it was pretty good. I think the popular take, or at least in the circle that I run in, is that it's fun to like shit on Dodge or shit
Sure.
on our film school education, because it's sort of like advertised when you like go on the tour and stuff, is like you're gonna be using this like cool soundstage and all this fancy stuff, and like they really advertise it as this like basically free-for-all of like, here's just all this cool equipment and you're going to be making movies and stuff all the time, and then you get there and it's like, actually you'll maybe get a chance to use some of this stuff like once a year if you're lucky, if it's not already booked by, you know, the grad students who also have
the grad students, yeah.
Yes, so in that way it was sort of frustrating, but I think my major specifically was cool. It was very hands-on, so we did get to make a decent amount of stuff and like write a lot of stuff. The one critique I would have of the TV major is that it all seemed sort of like built on the old style of TV business that was like focused on the networks and stuff, and was like totally not prepared for the advent of streaming TV, which is like what is everything now. And so yeah, we didn't learn anything about how like the business models of like Amazon Prime or like Netflix or like any of these new streaming services. We didn't learn anything about how any of that works. And of course,
nice to know.
Yeah, that's like basically how everything works now. What about you? How did you feel about the film? Because the film production major was like the flagship program at that school.
Yeah, that is like the one. I don't know. I personally was like, I would not go to Dodge, or if I were allowed to dox the place that we went, I would not have gone had I not been the major that I was, because I think that the school just sort of caters everything to that major, for better or for worse. At least that was my impression. At least that's what I heard from other students in the screenwriting major and the TV major or whatever. So I feel fortunate in that regard that I had, quote unquote, the best possible experience that I could have had, like based on how the school is set up. But, you know, it's an institution. There's problems with it, but generally pretty happy with how it went. I don't know what it would have been like if I had gone somewhere else. Obviously, that you could play that game forever, but generally pretty happy with it, even though there were major problems that, would be literally a whole other podcast, a whole other episode that we don't have time to get into.
I like that answer. I think that pretty much that resonates with me. I feel like your answer is similar to what I think I've heard other people say about that film production major, where it's like, it's great for me, but I can understand how it would be frustrating in some aspect.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what a third. I mean, I was gonna say we both are like kind of rocking similar hair right now, but
rocking pretty similar hair right now.
That's very superficial, I guess. So I'm trying to think of something a little deeper.
Well, we both now have shows where we talk to other people about interests, and I think maybe that comes from a mutual interest in hearing ourselves talk to a certain degree, but also in having an excuse to talk to other people. Would you say that you are just generally interested in like hearing what other people have to say about stuff?
Yeah, 100%. And the reason why I started my second podcast, where I literally just wanted people to talk about something that is like one of their favorite things of all time, regardless of what it is because I think it gives people a platform to like be like, in some cases, like the best version of themselves, you know? Sure. Like, I think it's easy to judge someone in the day-to-day minutia, because especially living in Los Angeles can be really, really challenging. And when you get someone in a space where they're talking about something that they really love and are really passionate about, then you ultimately get to see like their heart, which is really nice, and like really get to see like the best version of themselves, or like them when they're, you know, really excited about something. So there was that as well. That was probably like tied for the biggest element about why I started it. And then the other reason being that I was There's not a lot going on in my life right now during the pandemic, and I was like, I think I need another little thing to keep me going throughout the week to like make and look forward to. So, does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially that latter half about just having something to do, and I think also specifically because it's the pandemic and like we can't see our friends and the people that we like in real life anymore. It just makes it that much more like powerful and cathartic to have any excuse to talk to another human being about literally any subject. And I'm jealous of that show that you have about, for the reason that you said, of having somebody be passionate about what they're talking about. I think that's a great idea for a show.
Well, listen to me, brother. You're on the list. You're on my little short list. I got my next couple months planned out, and you're on there. So you're going to get that text one day. Okay. You're not going to know when, but you're going to get it, and you're going to be like, I absolutely will not be coming on that show.
No, but depending on how, we'll see how we're looking on our next chemistry check, which is coming up. And we really got to speed around this because it's already 7:46, and we haven't gotten through the first set of 12 questions. So
let's keep going then.
Oh, God, I forgot to pull up the background. Here we go.
I think you're supposed to ask me this one.
Okay, if you could choose to live inside the world of a fictional book or movie, which would you and which one?
I don't think I'd want to live there permanently, you know? Mm-hmm. But I think it would be cool to live in, like, check out Springfield from The Simpsons.
Wow, yeah, that would be cool.
There's just so many fun characters in that one that it's like, I would love to actually have a conversation with Hans Moleman or Bumblebee or Homer, you know, even for that, for simplicity's sake. So Springfield probably would be where I'd like to check out. It's so iconic that I could be like, you motherfuckers, I got to go to Springfield. I got to hang out with Bart and Lisa.
When you go to Springfield, do you think, like, become a cartoon person, or would it be just like what the real world looks like, but an analog of, like, you know, like human-looking Bart and human-looking Homer? Or would you be in the cartoon world with them?
My brain immediately goes to being a cartoon. You know, that's kind of why
I'd... too? Or would you be like human Noah inside Cartoon Simpsons?
No, I think I would be animated. Like, I think I would be a cartoon. Like, that's part of the reason why I even picked it in the first place, is because it's like, I want to be a cartoon for a little bit. That sounds awesome.
That does sound awesome. That could be really cool.
How about you?
I don't know. I think like the obvious answers are things like Harry Potter, to be a wizard would be kind of fun. Although being in the Harry Potter universe doesn't ensure that you'd be a wizard. In fact, I think it's still pretty unlikely, like technically speaking.
That's true.
Like most of the world are still just, so that would be kind of frustrating to know that wizards exist and still be.
You were a muggle. You got zapped in there as a muggle. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, that would be terrible. I think Pokemon would be really fun.
Like as a Pokemon or as a Pokemon trainer?
Definitely as like a Pokemon trainer. I think like to have a Pokemon, like that would be really cool. I mean, I'm sure there would be like, in the way that there's like politics involved with like the hunting of animals now.
Right.
There'd be probably some sad side effects to living in the universe with Pokemon, where like, do we eat Pokemon? I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen, at least in the anime, anyone ever eat a Pokemon. I feel like it's kind of like a unwritten rule. It's like they're sacred. You really don't eat Pokemon.
Yeah, you only eat those little like rice ball things.
Yes, those look fucking incredible.
Those are the only things that you eat. Yeah, I don't think Pokemon bleed or die in the
no,
so I don't think they can.
They go to sleep.
Yeah, they go to sleep and they faint. All right, I think we've covered that answer. We got to move on.
Great. All right, Jake, here's
9?
question 10, I think.
10, right. Okay, 10. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? Oh, that's an interesting one, actually.
I think I'm actually supposed to ask you this one, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you.
Oh, okay,
if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
That's a good question. If I could change anything about the way I was raised, I guess it's not really like being taught a specific thing or not taught a specific thing, but I was raised mainly like an only child. I have older siblings, but they're much older to the point where they were all in college by the time I was like growing up in elementary and middle school. They were like out of the house. So when I was like a kid, when I was having my formative adolescent years, I was pretty much on my own at the house. And I think it would have been nice to have siblings around to like socialize with at home, because I feel like as much as there are benefits to being an only child, obviously, like you get more attention from your parents, and like I think you learn lessons about how to entertain yourself and like deal with being alone in a way. It would have also, I think, been helpful to like learn those social lessons of like dealing with an annoying younger brother or an annoying older sister, and like how to deal with those conflict issues that you like have to learn later in life.
That makes sense, 100%. I remember being like an only child up until my sister was born, and I just remember this is gonna sound really insane, but I literally remember, and I was like pretty young too when my sister was born. I was like 4 years old when my sister was born. I remember thinking like, damn, it was better when I was an only child.
Wow.
Like I remember thinking that, and so that's interesting. I guess I've never really lived a life not having a younger sister, so definitely teaches you something to be an older sibling, you know, like just so instinctual about like being a person and like having like a younger person who like looks up to you pretty much no matter what. So it's very interesting. I guess I've never really thought about it like that.
What would you change if you were able to change something about the way you were raised?
This is legitimately, this is not anything. This is gonna sound like a cop out, I feel like, but I wouldn't change anything. Actually, I would, and that's not because like I had a perfect life growing up, because that's far from true. Everybody deals with shit, but I wouldn't change it because it's the way I am now, and like that's the way my life is going. I also think it's like not like constructive or helpful to think about that, to be honest with you, because it's like, oh shit, like, well, if my parents didn't get divorced, then like what would my life really be like? Would I actually be here? Would I be talking to you right now? Like all that butterfly effect shit. So I don't personally think it's like super constructive to think about, but it is interesting to think about. I know that's why it's a question, but I wouldn't change anything, to be totally honest with you. Like,
no, it's cool, dude. I get it. It's a fucking dumb question. I shouldn't have even asked it. I'll get rid of it.
You're a dumb asshole for asking it. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, cool. Hey, Squishy Tay. Yeah, we're streaming tonight. This is a new show that I'm trying out. It's called Falling in Love With, where I interview my friends and then maybe we fall in love with each other, and maybe you fall in love with it. And Noah's here. And
I'm doing really well so far.
He's doing pretty good so far. We're gonna do a chemistry check in two more questions. So we'll get a chance to see what the 9 viewers here think about.
Really sad to know it's 9. Come on, folks.
Come on, folks. Tell your friends. We're falling in love. It's question freaking 11, dude. And do I ask you this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Take 15 seconds and tell your partner your life story. Oh yeah, I changed this one for 4 minutes so that it could go faster. So take 15 seconds and tell your partner your life story in as much detail as possible. So you have 15 seconds on the clock, and I'll do a timer on my phone. So don't.
Yeah, please.
So it'll be official 15 seconds, not 5. Sorry, excuse me, 15 full seconds, and you can just give me your full life story.
My full life story in 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
All right.
Okay, hold on. And
I'm doing the same. Okay.
Go.
All right. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. Then I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I grew up and I went to an art school, and I decided I didn't want to act anymore, so I went to film school, and then I realized, fuck, I actually do want to keep acting and making movies, and then I had to move back to Oregon during the pandemic. How's that? Am I had myself time?
Yeah, no, that was pretty good. You actually had about a second and a half to spare.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty good.
I actually thought that I said it in like 5 seconds, to be totally honest with you.
You covered a lot of ground there. I mean, in like geographically and also just narratively.
Yeah. All right. Same goes to you.
Okay, 15 seconds on the clock. Here we go.
I got you. All right. You ready?
Oh, you're timing me on your end?
Yes.
Okay.
And go.
I was born in a town outside of Chicago called Oak Park, Illinois. I lived there for 18 years with the exception of 1 year where I lived in England. Then I came back in 8th grade, and then I went to college at Chapman University, which we both attended in Southern California. I was there for 4 years studying television.
And time.
Okay, well, did not get the full story, just got to college. But
damn.
Not a lot has happened since then, so I feel like we covered a lot. We got most of the good stuff in that.
I know we got to move on because we have so many more questions
really
to go.
do
But
have to move on.
Can I ask you about England? What was the deal about going to England for a year? I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was both my parents. My parents are pretty old. They're both. My dad is in his mid-70s. My mom is in her late 60s, and they had both just retired when I was when I was in middle school, late middle school, and so they wanted to just sort of like go
fuck off in England.
Yeah, fuck off to England, basically. Like
yeah.
They had been sort of trapped in the Midwest for their entire careers, whatever, 25, nearly quarter century, just grinding away, and they wanted to try something new, and so we just packed up and moved to England for a year. And we were gonna stay longer, I think, but it was at the time of the economic crisis of 2008.
Right.
And also during that time, the British pound was like twice the value of the American dollar. So we moved there, and just like everything immediately became twice as expensive.
Yeah.
So we could not stay for very long, but I really enjoyed it. I made one of my best friends who I still keep in touch with from that 7th grade, which was cool to have somebody just on the other side of the world, kind of, that we kept in touch.
That's awesome.
But it was a cool experience, and I wish I could have told you more about it, but unfortunately we only had 15 seconds, and we must move on. We're getting some questions here. Falling in love with someone on stream is truly the way of the future. We'll find out.
Listen, we're doing it.
We are going to figure this out. Jake, will you always be the candidate in the chair? I will always. This is the host chair. So I will always be the host, although I'm thinking about potentially hosting this in character as somebody else, although technically under my contract with Mr. Nice Guy, I'm not allowed to do that.
Right.
I may try to have my lawyers speak with them about letting me host in a character, just so that I'm not answering the same questions over and over again every episode. So to answer your question, somebody like me who looks similar to me will be sitting in this chair all the time, and the guest will always be in the frame you see here where Noah is currently. He is my guest. And so let's go on to what will be the last question of this round.
All right, so question 12 says, if you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be?
Ooh.
That's to you.
If I could have any quality or ability, I mean, as vain as it is, I feel like just being insanely attractive.
Well, listen, if you're asking me, you don't have to wake up and have that happen, my friend.
Oh, that is very sweet of you. But just one of those, if I could wake up and look like Brad Pitt, I just feel like when you are that beautiful, there is just an ease of life that just I feel like you see people just treat you better, and it becomes other things that you want to do, I feel become more attainable. I think there are things like learning a language in a day would be very cool. But I feel so many of those other things, and I suppose you can also fix being not you can get plastic surgery and stuff, but things like learning a language, I feel will almost be obsolete eventually, where we'll have technology that just instantly translates things across languages.
Sure.
In the little we already have stuff that's pretty similar to that. I guess a photographic memory is almost a superpower.
Yeah.
I don't know if that even would count, but that would be pretty good. I guess, yeah, either be it just a perfect 10 or a photographic memory.
A dime piece.
Yes.
I think right now, the answer to that question for me is that I wake up and I know how to play a bunch of different instruments.
That's a good one. I thought about having that answer, yeah. It is just, you see other people do it, and it's it seems like magic.
So I'm, for the listeners at home or the viewers at home, I'm actually not in LA right now because of the pandemic. I'm high risk, so I'm just kind of riding the wave out in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. And something I've wanted for a long time was a drum set. And my dad was like, I think you're going to be here for a while. I will get you an electronic drum set. And I was like, hell yes, absolutely. So I'm slowly kind of learning the drums a little bit right now. I'm pretty trash. I wouldn't even call myself a musician, like in any way, shape, or form. But drums, piano, those two are the ones that I've always really wanted to learn.
Oh yeah. Have you talked to Rocky at all about drumming? I know that Rocky is a drummer.
You know, you are literally the first person I've told, because I don't want to tell people, because then they're going to expect to see me do it one day, you know? And I don't know how seriously I want to take it. I doubt I'm going to take them with me when I go back to LA, just because of space, you know? And time and whatever that I would have to put in if I actually really wanted to get good. So it's a nice distraction right now. It's something kind of a wish fulfillment that I've wanted for years and years and years, basically since I was like in 6th or 7th grade. So like 10 plus years at this point. But that and piano, those are the two things that I would really like to learn how to play. But yeah, that's what I would wake up knowing how to play a bunch of different instruments.
Fuck yeah, that's a good answer. All right, it's time.
What do we? Yeah, here we go.
The chemistry check, folks. It's time for another chemistry check. after every 12 questions, we do a chemistry check to check in with you, the chat, to see how you feel the love connection is going so far. So, with a 1 being abysmal, we're not connecting at all, and a 5 being a perfect match, we should go to Vegas right now and get married even in a global pandemic. Go ahead and vote on how you feel our chemistry.
4 is a very interesting vote.
I don't know what
to say about 4.
But again, there will be 2 more of these, presumably after the 24th question.
And at the end.
And at the very end, after all 36 questions have been done. And we did do one at the very beginning before any questions. And I think...
So technically there's 4 total then?
There will be 4 total, yes. I think the results from our first one was a split between 3 and 5.
So 4 would make sense logically to be next.
So the dial hasn't appeared to move all that much. I'm going to close it out now. It seems like the majority of you are saying 4, which that's pretty good, I would say.
That's pretty good.
We haven't gone down. It seems like the connection at least has not weakened since we've started doing this. So that, I guess, is probably a good sign. But
I would say so.
We should move on because it's already been an hour and we are only 1/3 of the way done.
Alrighty, let's
so
move.
We're gonna go speed. We're gonna speed through these next ones. Here's one, question 13, and I think I ask you this one.
Yes.
If a crystal ball could tell you the truth about yourself, your life, the future, or anything else, what would you want to know?
Yikes. Wow, okay. See, I almost wouldn't want to know, like how would you be raised thing, because I feel like once you know, you start acting different, you start being a different person almost, like when you have that sort of forbidden knowledge. So once again, I would say don't tell me. I would rather not know. Absolutely.
That makes, I definitely see the benefit of having that mystery, because to your point, it would almost like, the crystal ball thing is weird because it's like, if you ask it, when will I die, or like what will my job be, like is that guaranteed even based on that knowledge? Like theoretically you could act in a way that you would think would be counterintuitive to being able to fulfill that thing. So I don't know, there is sort of like a paradoxical element to that question. That being said, I think it would be cool to ask a crystal ball just like what does everybody that I know actually think of me?
There you go. Okay. Yep. That
I feel
that's
like
a little forbidden as well.
It is forbidden. I think though, although it would probably change the way that you behave around people, if it's ultimately true information about how people actually feel about you, I think it can only be for the better that you know that information. Because if it's people who are pretending to like you that don't like you, like you can know to sort of cut toxic people out of your life, or
That's a
stop
good point.
worrying about that. And if there's people who you're maybe, I think we all have like friends or people who we are in some ways self-conscious about how they perceive us. And
Totally.
to have assurance from this crystal ball, one way or the other, I think in a lot of cases probably that it's true that they just are friends with you and that your worries are unfounded, hopefully for both of us.
Right.
It would be good to know one way or another, I feel like. Or
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's that whole idea of like, I wish I could watch my funeral, but you never will be able to.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer.
Thank you. Likewise. All right. We're moving on.
Chef.
We're moving on to question 14.
Alrighty, here we go.
Here it is.
Question 14.
Yes, you asked me.
Is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time, and why haven't you done it?
Well, I mean, up until today, I've definitely thought about having some sort of interview show.
There we go.
And I've done it, and here it is. And this is why
Yes.
I haven't done it. I don't know. I think.
Yep. I feel okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. No, I mean, I definitely, as to why I hadn't done it for this long, I think obviously there is a self-conscious barrier of just like, what if nobody likes my show?
Right.
There are, logistical issues of just like, it's hard to make a show and find guests, and you as somebody who hosts multiple shows are probably aware of the just sort of general production issues and complications that come with hosting your own show. And I don't know if this counts as an answer, because technically here I am, I'm doing the thing.
There you go.
But it is something that I've thought about doing for a really long time, and it hadn't for a really long time, so here I am doing it.
Look, honestly, glad you're doing it, because once you actually do it and realize that like, nobody cares in the sense that like no one actually is like worried about it, you know what I mean? Like no one is actually like, not that no one cares that you're doing it, but it's like nobody is like watching you with eagle eyes basically to be like, oh, is he gonna fuck this up, or oh, is this gonna be any good? It's just like, all right, I'm doing it, and this is kind of how it's going. So it is freeing in that sense. And my answer probably would be the musical instruments thing. Like, honestly, like, I've had a couple opportunities when I was younger where my parents were like, do you want to learn an instrument? They didn't force it on me. They were like, are you interested? And I was just like, no, like, I don't really want to spend my time like doing that. I know one of my like faults, I guess, or like shortcomings is that I actually do get frustrated very easily. Like, I know that about myself. And like the whole thing about learning something new, especially like a literally applied skill, is that you're going to suck at it, at first, because you don't know how to do it. And I just get really frustrated. Like, even with video games, I actually get mad. You know what I mean? If I'm not doing well. And so that's truly been like a thing in my life where it's kind of like stopped me from doing things, because I know that how frustrated I can get at things and like how easily I'm angered in that way. But musical instrument would definitely be probably the thing that it's like, well, why haven't I done it yet? And I'm not even really like doing consistent lessons with this drumming thing. I just sort of get on and like feel out the timing and the coordination with the hands and the feet. And now I'm still.
How often are you doing that?
I was doing it every day for a while. It's slowed down to probably 3 or 4 times a week at this point, so not every single day.
That's so pretty good.
But trying to do it at least 30 minutes every single day. That's my goal.
What puts you in the mood to start drumming usually? Is it the same time every day, or is it like you just like get a gut feeling it's time to sit down at the drums?
It's usually a gut feeling where I'm just like, yep, this is it. Honestly, it's like if I kind of just need like a release, if like something's bothering me, or if something is like, I need a change of pace if I've been sitting down for too long. I know drumming is, you're sitting down, but it is a little bit different. You're moving your arms and your legs. And if I'm really going at it and I'm like feeling it, even though I know I sound like complete garbage to anyone who actually does know how to play the drums, if I'm feeling it, I'll like work myself up to the point where I don't feel tired, but I feel like energized like in the way you do after you have like a good workout, where it's like, oh, I feel fulfilled doing that.
Totally. Well, I think drums, especially of any instrument, because it has sort of like almost like a violent nature to it of like hitting something, like percussion, would be great for that reason.
Totally. So that's my answer, is why haven't you learned how to play a musical instrument yet? Lots of reasons, but I'm trying.
Good answer.
Like chef.
Okay, we're gonna go on to, what is it, 15?
Yes.
It's hard to keep track of these damn questions.
Yes.
What is the greatest accomplishment of your life?
Whew.
That's a big one.
That's a big question. Yeah.
That's a really big one.
Well, the truth of the matter is, I don't think it's happened yet. Like, that's what I would like to believe. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is that the greatest accomplishment of my life hasn't occurred yet. I can tell you what my greatest accomplishment is up until this point in my life.
Let's do that. But I agree with you, and I would hope that neither of us have peaked yet.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that for you as well, and pretty much everyone that I know. Well, not everyone I know. Everyone that I know who I like. Right. When I was a senior in high school, you had to do a thing called a capstone project, which was in our school, because it was an arts like magnet academy, basically. You had to do a like 55 or 60 minute, like it was like an hour long. It was basically like a TED talk, basically. And you had to integrate the arts, and you had to basically talk about your life. But the really fucking upsetting and frustrating thing was like no one had like a clear idea of what exactly a capstone was supposed to be, because they wanted it to be open-ended. Mm-hmm. And so you basically got to the stage, so to speak, to do whatever you want. And I was lucky enough that I got to book the Performing Arts Center, the auditorium, for my presentation. And I had movies playing, and it was like a bit of a stage show where I like interacted with different people. And you go to this school, at least I did, for 7 years, watching people do these capstone projects. It's like a big ass deal. You know, they literally devote an entire week to it, and you go and see all these students' capstones. It was awesome. It was really cool. It's supposed to be, you know, it's your big senior project. And I took it very seriously. You know, I really wanted mine to be important in the sense that I wanted it to mean something, you know, to someone else who could be sitting out. Because I had seen other kids, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, this can be something cool, or it can be a fucking mess. You know, like it's pretty much one way or the other.
You've seen people bomb their capstones?
Oh yeah, there's some really cringe ones, and they're just like brutal, because they don't know how to take up like 60 minutes. Basically, they like talk time. It is, but dude, when you're up there and you're going for it, it flies by. It's crazy. And I had a technical difficulty at the beginning of mine, and it like stopped the entire thing, and the person in like the tech booth was trying to figure it out. So I literally I fucking improvised on stage for 15 minutes while they figured it out. Like
15 minutes of your hour where technical difficulty. Oh my god, it's a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. And luckily I finished right as the bell was about to ring, and sometimes people will do, you know, like Q&As at the very end, which I always thought was dumb. And so literally I was like, they were like, so Noah, do you want to do a Q&A? And I just said no. And then the bell rang and it was over. And I was really proud of it. People told me that it was, you know, I did a really good job. So probably that. And then I know your thesis at, you know, Dodge is supposed to be like your big project, but I actually like my AP more than I like my thesis. And I think my AP is the strongest movie I've ever made in my whole life, because I've always felt that I had more shortcomings as a director than I did either as a writer or as a performer. And so when I was able to pull off my AP, my junior thesis, for anyone watching who doesn't know what the fuck that is, I was like, yeah, I felt competent as a director, actually. Like, I felt actually competent to tell a story, and the story that I was telling. Like, I made a lot of mistakes with my thesis that if I could go back and do differently, I would absolutely do differently. I still think the movie's good. I think it actually is I would actually say, as far as people's perception of it, I think it's kind of underrated. I think there's people actually who really don't like the movie. I think there's people also who really like the movie. But my junior thesis and my capstone are probably my greatest personal achievements in my life thus far. Sorry, I know we're trying to speed through these things.
No, that's not like real, like one of the first, not one of the first, but I felt like a really good example of how these questions are supposed to be answered. Like, it felt like you sort of lost yourself in answering the question, like, we're really honest. It felt good.
Totally. No, 100%. So my question to you is, what is your greatest accomplishment thus far?
I think it's Everything Now show.
Sure.
Everything Now show is definitely my most, long-running creative endeavor, for sure. We've been making the show. I mean, technically Rocky and Alex are the ones who came up with the idea, and they started doing it a little bit before I joined. But I joined pretty early on in the process of making the show, and it's been over 2 years now, I think. So it's like the most, I don't know what the word is, long-running, not profound, but it's been going on for a really long time.
Yeah, no kidding.
It covers so much creative ground in terms of like all the things that we've done on it. Like this, I would even include under sort of the umbrella of Everything Now show.
Totally.
So it basically like encompasses every creative thing that I've done since college. It's like one of the first creative things that I've felt really like unashamed of, where I feel like up until, and I still occasionally cringe at the stuff that we make on Everything Now show. I'm occasionally embarrassed by the things that the characters and stuff that I do on the show, but for the most part,
I cringe every single time. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I cringe every time I come on the show, but not because of you guys, because I'm like, fuck. So I feel you on that. Yeah,
it is like a tightrope walk doing live improvised comedy on the internet.
Yep.
But I think, it's something to be proud of. It's definitely something unique that I don't think a lot of people are doing, which is something that I definitely take pride in. And I think it's just an accomplishment in committing to any creative endeavor for 2 years. Like, I think so many people start bands or podcasts or interview shows or whatever that will last a couple of weeks or months or maybe a year, and then for especially something collaborative like this where it's 5 people, it's with people's lives changing and moving around and stuff like that, it's pretty remarkable to have a group of people stick together and make something that they like for that long. So I would say definitely the show is
that's awesome.
My biggest achievement thus far, but hopefully we'll be topped eventually.
Yes, exactly.
All right, we're gonna move on. The question, I want to say 16.
Okay, question 16.
Yes.
What do you value most in a friendship?
What do I value most in a friendship? I think, oops, that's still there. How do I get rid of that?
Bye-bye.
Excuse me.
Excuse you.
There we go. What do I value most in a friendship? I think, probably just like easy to be around is not real. It's like hard to articulate exactly what that means, but like somebody who you can be just in a room with or like around for extended periods of time and be comfortable talking or not talking. There's that line that I always think about from, I think it's Best in Show, the Christopher Guest, where it's she's talking, we could talk or not talk for hours. And that's supposed to be a bit, but I also feel like there is some truth to just like a good friend is somebody who, I mean, like there are like the stereotypical things like always has your back and stuff like that, where I think is sort of like assumed, but yeah, I think just someone who you can always just be comfortable around, comfortable being yourself, not feeling like you have to put on any sort of facade to be around that person would be something that is rare and valuable in a friend.
100%. I was going to say something else, but I actually think that last part of what you said, I think is my answer as well. Like someone who you feel accepts you for who you are, and you don't necessarily feel like you have to be someone else, you feel comfortable being yourself around them. I was going to say someone that you trust, which I do think is an important, quality of being a friend. But I think I agree with that last thing that you just said of just that you feel as though you can be yourself around them, which I think actually is more of like an internal thing than something potentially with another person, but it's that like striking a chord, you know, basically it's like you recognize something in them that makes you comfortable enough to do that. You know what I mean?
And I think it even speaks to what you were saying about trusting somebody. I think those are sort of symbiotic answers, because I think the only way that you can really feel truly comfortable being 100% yourself around somebody else is if you trust them to not like fuck you over or like make fun of you behind your back, or like if you have faith that this person is genuine in this relationship and like not like trying to pull some shit behind your back, you feel safe to be 100% yourself around that person. So I think those two things kind of go hand in hand.
I love that. That's 100%. Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Beautiful. And that's where I think I could feel the chemistry check beat meter slowly inching towards a perfect 5.
Yeah.
And we do have some comments from the chat that I would be remiss not to acknowledge. So we have Part-Time Plebs, who is a lurker from Down Under, which I'm assuming means Australia. They say multiverse Napoleon Dynamites, which I guess is what we look like. That is what the only thing I could think of what that might mean.
Cool.
And I kind of take that as a compliment. It's an iconic look, John Heater. I mean, not known necessarily to be attractive, but certainly a compelling looking person.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, in a way, all you can ask for. And Nuclear Goose says, I'm glad ENS didn't break up due to the creative differences, rather through corporate takeover. And yes, and unfortunately, I'm not really allowed to speak much further on that, but I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do have to move on to the next question, which of course is question.
I just feel bad for Rocky, but let's keep going.
17. What is one of your most treasured memories? And that's question 5. You can disregard question 5. The show is really falling apart in the later half here. I think this question we're almost at the halfway point, so we do have to keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going. I don't know why this is the treasured memory. I don't know why this is the first thing that came to mind, but there was a day my sophomore year of college where I just felt like the fun didn't stop. Like it was just like unplanned, and I was just like, this is like so fun. Like I'm having such an amazing time. Like it was just like, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing that. I remember it started with a group of 4 of us, me and 3 other people. We went to go see that Natalie Portman movie, Jackie. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I do, about Jackie Kennedy.
About Jackie Kennedy. We went to go see that, and then we all hopped in the car. We were all pretty hyped on it, you know, like we were all like, oh, that was like a very good movie.
That's kind of a weird movie to all be hyped on.
We were all hyped on Jackie. And then we all got in the car, and we were kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling hungry too. Should we go get something to eat? And then we all went to go get something to eat together, and it wasn't planned, and it was so fun. And then 2 of the guys who lived with each other were like talking to me and the other person, do you guys want to come back to our place and play Smash? And I was like, yes. And then we went back to their place and played Smash, and it was so fun. And then I think we were all going to the same party later that night. So it was literally just like 8 to 10 straight hours of just nonstop fun. I know that sounds kind of silly, but like it really was one of my favorite days of college.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. It makes me think about that question, whatever question 2 or 3 about the perfect day, and it almost seems like that in a way you just described a perfect day in a sense.
It was
just all the best things happening one after another.
What about you?
I think I don't know if it's my most all these questions where it's like the most or the best or the whatever.
Right.
I think it's more valuable to do what you did, which is just to pick something.
We eat the money.
Yes,
yum, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Taxman.
$5. Thank you, Taxman.
Yeah, Taxman giving out the money this time.
Yes.
Instead of taking it away.
Classic Taxman. All right, I guess the opposite of what a taxman usually does, to your point.
That's right.
But thank you, taxman, regardless, for my returns or whatever it is at my tax refund, I suppose. I don't know. We can't get bogged down in this. But to your point,
we have to push forward.
I think it's almost always more interesting to hear what is top of mind for somebody in these types of questions rather than
Totally.
over trying to pick the very best or most or whatever. And so to that end, I would say one that comes to mind immediately is from my childhood when I was probably, I want to say 8 or 9 years old. My best friend, my childhood best friend, who remains my best friend to this day, we met when we were like 1 year old.
Oh my God.
Our babysitters were friends with each other, and so we would occasionally have play dates just because they would want to hang out with each other.
Sure.
And so that's how we got to know each other when we were little babies. But we were probably 9 years old, and we were playing, I was sleeping over at his house, and we were playing Crash Team Racing, the Crash Bandicoot kart racing video game for the PlayStation 1. And we had gotten maybe a third of the way into the game, and it was time. His mom made us go to bed because it was like 10 o'clock. But we left the PlayStation running because we didn't have a memory card, and we sort of like agreed like we're gonna pretend to go to bed. And we're going to stay up until his mom goes to bed, and then we're going to sneak back down. And so we did. We snuck back down at probably 1 a.m. And I just remember the thrill of sneaking down into the basement and turning back on the TV and switching off playing Crash Team Racing until the sun came up, beating the game, and just like waking up, like falling asleep on the couch as the sun was coming up, having beaten this video game together. Just something about like the wholesome kind of like carefree vibe of just like a childhood sleepover is something that I really treasure. And as a memory with someone who I really care deeply about, like a best friend. So I think that's one that always comes to mind when I think of a treasured memory.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what is more fun than a sleepover? Like straight up.
Yeah, some of the best, but also occasionally sometimes terrible memories I feel like come from sleepovers.
Yeah, that is true. I guess it is kind of a polarizing situation.
Yeah,
it's either, this is great, or I'm never going to one of these ever again.
But they're very memorable, and that we can agree on. And now we must move on to the next question, which of course is question, I want to say 18. And what is the last thing that made you laugh really, really hard?
Am I supposed to keep asking you the even numbered ones, or are you just going to ask me every single question?
I don't know. I guess I'm having a hard time remembering, although even an odd would be a great way, and I'm shocked that it hasn't occurred to me to think of it that way. Were you supposed to ask me that question?
I was supposed to ask you, so I'm supposed to ask you the even questions.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, in that case, I'll answer this one first, and then from this point going forward, I will ask you the odd questions, and you can continue asking me the even questions, and I'll make a mental note of that. And so something, I don't know if it wasn't really recently, but something that made me laugh so hard I cried was we were watching on Amazon, you know how there are just kind of like random movies that just like anybody can upload to Amazon Prime, just like shitty free, like Roblox, like YouTube videos are somehow like a movie on Amazon Prime now. So we had just watched, gosh, I don't even remember what movie we had just finished. We had watched, this is why it's even more bizarre, this situation. We had just watched, I want to say the movie was called K-Town Cowboys. It was produced
never heard of
that. It was produced by Ken Jeong, and he's in it for like 7 seconds, but it's about just like these guys who live in Koreatown here in LA, and just like, it's kind of just like a sort of like a very low budget hangover type movie where it's just like the boys are going out having a debaucherous time, but it's in Koreatown, and it's all Korean guys, and it's all about Korean. It's sort of like immersed in Korean culture. We watched it because it was a comedy that takes place in Koreatown. Not that I live anywhere near there.
Right. Sure.
But I thought that was interesting. And so after this movie was over, we were just scrolling through random Amazon titles, and we came across this Amazon movie called, I think it was called Bully 2. And I'm not sure where it is from. It's some like Southeast Asian country. I want to say maybe it's a Vietnamese movie potentially.
Okay.
But it had been the title cards had been translated, presumably through like Google Translate, into these like title cards, and so they were just like the most perfect. Like they would have these just dramatic scenes of like high schoolers like fighting, and you couldn't understand what they were saying because it hadn't been subtitled, so it was all the dialogue was still in a language that we couldn't understand. But then there would be these big title cards in these broken English phrases where they say like "strongers are coming," and just like these which. Maybe it's problematic to find that funny, but to me, in the moment, reflecting on it now is maybe it's not funny to say that, but in that time, in that moment, just reading these title cards made me laugh so hard I cried.
There you go. That was not what I expected you to say at all, to be totally honest. Man, it's been somewhat recent that I've been laughing pretty damn hard, and I couldn't tell you exactly. Oh, you know what? I actually do know 100%. On my favorite podcast, which is my interview show where I talk to people about their favorite things. This is not me literally trying to do cross promotion right now. This is actually the answer.
But it is a plug.
But it is a plug. I was talking to, I think he's actually appeared on this show, just not as an improviser, Thomas Serdarian.
I'm not sure if he has. Maybe he has.
He did something with Rocky where they watched The Shining, I think, at one point.
That's right. Yes, they did do. It wasn't part of the improvised show, but it was a show kind of like this, where it's like a side project that Rocky was working on. Yeah, they watched that. And so I had him on my podcast, and on the show you can talk about literally anything you want. And he wanted to talk about Norm's Diner, which is the Southern California regional chain that's slightly better than Denny's and IHOP, basically. Yeah. And he used to work at Norm's when we were all going to school at an undisclosed location. And his stories about working at Norm's were cracking my shit up, specifically about how he would come in to work, because I guess they only scheduled him on the weekends. So he would come in at 8 a.m. just still drunk from the night before, and he said that he said this was his routine. I'll only say this one because this genuinely made me laugh recording the pod, editing the pod, and then I laughed again still listening to the pod when it actually came out. Oh my god.
But so he's got a lot of really good stories about the customers he would meet at Norm's. But he said that he would still be drunk. He would come into work. He was a host at Norm's, so he was seating people, getting people coffee, all that different shit. And he said he would come in, take the worst shit of his life, and he would sometimes get locked in the stall in the employee bathroom. And then he would stand behind a partition, pour himself Diet Pepsi at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then chug it until his brain hurt, and then take the station at Norm's behind and just sloppily drunk seat people and just have the worst time. And he just talks about it in a way that just was cracking my shit up. The way he talks about some of the customers that were in there, it's a really just honestly it's just funny, legitimately. So that was probably the last thing that made me laugh really, really, really hard. That's my answer.
What episode? How recently was that episode released?
That is the most. It's the most recent episode that just came out, episode 14.
Shit. Okay, well, folks, including myself, another great reason to go check out the pod.
That's my answer.
Aiden Wood has a comment about Norm's. They say, I fucked a guy who worked at Norm's. He may have given me chlamydia. He also once told me, I think it's so cool that you were so creative with your Halloween costume instead of trying to be sexy. You eventually ghosted me after I sent one of the best titty pics of my life. Whatever. I'm not bitter. So that is another interesting thing about Norm's.
Listen, you're in Southern California. You have to hit up Norm's. That's all we're saying.
If that is not a ringing endorsement, if what you've heard already on the show hasn't made you want to go to Norm's, I'm not sure what I can tell you to make you go there. But as much as I'd love to continue talking about Norm's, we do have to move on to And now, odd questions are the ones that I ask you, correct?
Correct.
And so in that case, I will ask you this question, the 19th question, which is, of course, if you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, would you change anything about the way that you are living, and why?
Okay, so interesting question to ask right now during a pandemic.
Yeah, particularly prescient.
Very prescient. And I am high risk to COVID-19, so I have basically been inside, and if I have gone somewhere, it's full mask, full, spray, full whatever. I'm being as careful as I can, really not seeing anyone besides my family. And if I knew I was gonna die in a year, I don't know if I would go out still, because if I was gonna die in a year, I wouldn't want to get COVID still. So I don't know, to be honest with you, but might go see Tenet in theaters. That seems like a ballsy thing to do right now.
Well, let's say
might gamble a little bit.
For the sake of the conversation, assuming there were not a global pandemic happening,
gotcha,
and you were able to do whatever it is that you like, I mean, within
gotcha.
the realm of your own means, but assuming there were no global pandemic and you were given the news that you were going to die a year from today, would you change anything about the way that you live?
I would see as much of the world as I could. I would travel as much as I could. I don't have a lot of money to my name, so it would probably be a lot of driving around or bussing around. I probably wouldn't do a lot of international travel realistically, but I'd want to see as much of the country as I could. There's whole sections of the country I've never seen. I've never been to the Deep South. I've never been to the American Southwest. It's not true. I've been to Arizona. I've never really been to the Midwest in a way, any significant way. I have never really been, to the Mid-Atlantic. So traveling as much as I could would definitely be number one, to see as much of the world as possible. And honestly, just be spending as much time with people as I could, because that's what we got, is things and people. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I pretty much totally agree. I would definitely want to travel to the places that I haven't seen yet. I think spending time with people is 100% probably my main thing. Is just there are certain people who I don't get to see my family. I'll live back in the Midwest for the most part, and I stay out here because this is where the entertainment industry and my school and stuff were. But if I knew I only had a year left to see any of them, I would definitely probably go back to Chicago and try to find a way really to bring my whole family and the people that I love with me on my travel, so that I could kind of kill two birds with one stone in that way. I'd also probably do DMT and ayahuasca and all those hallucinogenics that I haven't tried.
No, they said, what would you change about your life? They didn't say, what would you continue to do every day?
What would I continue to do every single day? No, I would definitely, I think I would experiment with certain drugs. In the same way that I think, you want to experience life traveling, you want to experience other parts of the geographical world. I think I would also be interested in exploring other parts of the inside of my mind. And
listen, that's it.
I think a lot of the fear a lot of people have of those types of experiences is that, you hear the scary idea of it fucks up your brain forever, it's bad for your health, it'll give you, some sort of cancer, disease, or thing that will haunt you later in life. But assuming that there is no later in life, it would be interesting. And the limited experiences that I have had, allegedly, with hallucinogenics have all, for the most part, been pretty, I would say, productive and enlightening and positive. And the main reason that I haven't gone further with that is just because, there's a normal life to lead, and you can't just disappear into the wild for a week at a time. And do peyote with some weird shaman guy. But it's something that I think if I didn't have to worry about having a career later on in life and things like that, or a family, it's something that I would be open to exploring.
There we go.
All right, we're moving on. This one is going to be question 20.
20, right? Okay. Jake, what does friendship mean to you?
I feel like we kind of did this one already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think broadly friendship is just having, again, somebody who's dependable. But even that doesn't feel necessarily true, because I feel like I have friends who, like, I guess I depend on them, but I don't see them all the time, and like I wouldn't expect them to like necessarily be there for every little thing that I have just because they're living their own lives. But I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is just like friendship means somebody that you can be completely honest with and comfortable around and trust to respect your feelings, and yeah.
I mean, yeah, in a lot of ways we've answered this question already previously. So, you know, the shit that you just said about, you know, being accepting, you know, of this person, because it can be challenging to be accepting of people because you're kind of accepting the whole person, you know, the shortcomings and the things that you really enjoy about that person. And like you said, the dependability aspect is part of that, because there are friends who I'm like, yep, I absolutely would ask that person to drive me or pick me up from the airport. And then there's friends I would literally never ask to pick me up or drive me to the airport. Because that is a high pressure situation, for, you know, lack of a better term. Yeah. You have to get there. So I don't know. I think it's in a lot of ways, you know, that, you know, the trust aspect and the comfortability aspect, the willingness to be accepting of a person. There you go.
Agreed. All right. Well, I think I'm going to get rid of that question for future episodes because I feel like we answered it twice.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
We're going to move on to question 21. And this is an odd question, so I'll ask you, what roles do love and affection play in your life?
So, I guess there's like two schools of thought, or two minds here, where people, you like, I guess the optimist would say people are driven and motivated by love, and then maybe the pessimist or the edgelord realist, if you really want to get, you know, silly and funny about the whole thing, is to say that people are motivated and urged by fear. I think that there's two minds there. And I think it's both. I think people are motivated by both. I think sometimes fear can be, you know, like the backed up against the corner feeling of like, oh, I have to do this because I'm afraid, you know, like this is a desperation thing. But I would like to think, in an optimistic, idealistic sense, that people do act out of love. And I think that that is true in a lot of ways. And I think that even if they are acting out of love, or if they don't think they're acting out of love, they might be acting out of the fear that they won't be loved, or even on a more basic level that they won't be liked. So I think it is pretty freaking fundamental and pretty foundational, you know, to what we do every single day, all the choices that we make, whether we're conscious of it or not, even down to what am I going to do today? You know, how, you know, and in a pandemic, when you're spending a lot of time by yourself, how am I going to make myself happy? How am I going to better myself? How am I going to show myself some self-love potentially? So I think that everything we do is based around the idea of fear and love. And even if we aren't aware of it, affection, you know, I like hugging my parents. I like, you know, giving my friend a hug, you know. I think that's about as far as I'm going to go with the affection piece of that, you know. So, ladies, if you are interested or looking or anything, if you're watching, you know, my DMs are open, so we can move on. Jake, what about you?
Absolutely. I love that answer. I think it almost perfectly articulates my feelings, especially what you said about the idea of being motivated by the fear of not getting love, which I think is something that is oft overlooked or like not really addressed when trying to assess your motivations for something of like, am I doing this because I actually love this thing, or am I doing this because I'm afraid of not loving anything, or I'm afraid of not being loved for doing this thing? Fear, right. I think fear and love, I think, are definitely sort of two sides of the same coin in that way. I think the fact that you brought fear into it when it wasn't even necessarily part of the question sort of speaks to that idea, and I totally agree with you on that. And to your point also about affection, I agree also that affection to me almost feels like sort of a specifically I suppose not necessarily romantic, because like you said, you can have affection for your parents or your family, but it feels like sort of a subcategory of love, like a more specific and not necessarily less important part of love, but like a specific kind of like doting
totally
type of love that does not encompass the same like gravity that the type of love that you were talking about, the type of love that motivates us to do things, that is more about what we do and less about the people in our lives. And I think that type of love, that the love is sort of like a more broad concept rather than an emotion or a feeling towards somebody, is in every part of our lives, like you said.
100%. 100%. I don't know how it can't be as people. Like, it literally is so foundational and so fundamental to everything that we do. You know, I mean, it's crazy to think about it, I feel like, almost any other way.
Yeah. And that's why I made this show. And we got to move on.
Perfect. Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here.
To question number, I want to say 22.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, alternate sharing something you can... Okay, I totally fucked that one up. Okay, alternate sharing something you consider a positive characteristic of your partner. Share a total of 5 items.
Okay. So I think... Oh, fuck, it didn't go away. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so for this, I don't think we each do 5. I think you do 1, then I do 1, then you do, and we do up to 5 total things have been shared. So do you want to start, or would you like me to start?
I think I asked you, so you're just gonna say something you like about me, and then I'll say something I like about you.
Okay, that seems fair.
Okay.
Something that I like about you is that going back sort of to that what we were talking about with the value of a friend or something that we really value in a friend, is I feel like it is very comfortable talking to you. Like, I feel like I can be extremely. I mean, to the. I know you weren't my first choice for this show,
right?
So tactfully
lovingly
addressed
out, yeah,
at the beginning of this episode. But to that point, what could have been potentially an awkward exchange, you both disarmed the situation by calling attention to the awkwardness of it, but also I feel like now it doesn't feel like an awkward thing because we've addressed it, and it never felt like an awkward weird thing at all. And so just in general, I feel like you're part of a small group of people who I feel like are really honestly an ideal guest for this show, at least for these first few episodes where it is. I mean, it is genuinely difficult, and I'm finding now, even in these conversations, to be totally vulnerable and forthcoming about yourself, especially live on camera for a bunch of strangers also, which is another aspect of the show. But I think talking to you is pretty easy. So that's
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Like Jake said, I was not the first option for this show tonight. Maybe he will be reconsidering that when this is over and go, maybe Noah will be my first choice going forward. Who knows? Who's to say? Something that I like about you. You probably, I mean, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but the first time I ever saw you was when you were doing improv stuff at school. Like, that was my first impression of you, was going to an improv show. And I was like, man, that guy is very funny. And there were people on the team because I auditioned for the team, didn't get in, and I said, fuck it, not dealing with that shit for the rest of college, which is fine. That's a whole other thing. And we've talked about that off camera or whatever. But I remember I would go to Improv Inc. shows sometimes while you were still there, because you're two grades ahead of me. And I was like, damn, that guy's actually funny. And then I would talk to you at a party or whatever. And then I would, the more I did everything now, I would, get to know you more and more. And I'm like, oh, this guy is funny and not a dick. And I know that sounds not like a compliment, but it is, because you meet people who you watch and go, oh, they know what they're doing, up there, and they've clearly got a good idea. And like, even when I go and do everything now, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing out there. Like, I'm still intimidated to do like scenes with you guys because I'm like, oh, I have way less experience in training at this than you guys. But you really just made me feel part of the group, and I don't know what that quality is, but I guess, in a lot of ways it is that same thing you're saying right now about the comfortability, and that, you really did make me feel included, and it really did make a difference, in those first couple times doing Everything Now, when I was definitely scared shitless doing Everything Now at the beginning when you guys were in the old studio, if people actually know what that means, or if that's just code for you and me.
Yes.
So
there may be some old heads in the chat who remember the old studio, but that means a lot. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. I do. It's something I am self-conscious about. I think the way that I'm perceived by other people, and I think to your point, a lot of people are assholes, especially, I think, funny people. I think funny people are uniquely in a position to be assholes. I feel like there's so much of being funny, I feel like, is taking jabs at other things and like trying to knock other things down a peg. And so I think and I consider you a funny person too, and I won't count that as one of my 5 nice things. Or one of my 3 nice things that I'm supposed to say about you. But perhaps you can relate to just that idea of like, sometimes you have to toe a line of like being mean, like when you are making fun of something mutually among friends, which we are wont to do, especially I feel like our close friend group. And so I think we all realize that we have the capacity to be mean when we want to be as funny people. And so it means a lot that when somebody says that they are able to see through that we're trying to just be nice guys. And I think you're nice guys.
trying to be nice guys, trying not to be like an IRL Daniel Tosh situation,
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I think, okay, so I will say another nice thing about you, which is that I really admire your work ethic, and more specifically, I think you're an inspiration for this show. Just the way that you have created. It seems to me that you're somebody who, when you want to do something, and you can tell me how true this is, but the way I perceive it is when you are really interested and passionate about doing something, you're willing to just do it, which seems like an obvious thing, but I feel like both you and I know so many creative, talented people who, for whatever reason, will not take a step to actually, that which is of course the hardest step, doing the first thing, just dipping your toe in the water and making that leap to actually put something out there that someone might see. And so something that I really admire about you, and I'm jealous to an extent, is your willingness to just make a thing and learn from that thing. And I think a lot of that just comes with a work ethic to just put out shows. I mean, I don't know how often you're releasing podcasts, but I assume it's like multiple times a week. And just like the amount of work that requires to keep doing, I know is hard just from doing everything now. And I'm doing that with a team of 5 people. And I know that you have Mason as a co-host, but I know that it takes considerable drive to be able to pull that off.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's something that I've noticed as well. Like, I was about to say his name, but I won't say his name because that's not cool. But there is someone who I work with quite often, and I'm a little bit frustrated with him at the moment because we have something and he's not really wanting to release it. And I'm like, why? And I think it is a lot of the reasons why you just said is because I want to be making things. I find myself happiest when I am active and busy, and so will the output continue, when the world returns to a new normal? I don't know, but it makes me happy to be putting out things, and it makes me excited to be putting out things. And you get to that point where you're like, man, does anybody actually listen to this shit? Does anybody actually read this shit? Because I'll put out little like writing things as well too from time to time, little short pieces or whatever. And I'm like, man, no one is reading this. No one is listening to this. Why even bother? And that is also to go along with social media in the sense that like people are so passive on social media that someone could interact with your art, interact with your thing, interact with your creative whatever, and you would never know about it. And you have no idea what impact that can make on that person just because they didn't hit the little like or hit the retweet or hit the, share or whatever it is. So I just do it at this point, A, because I want to do it, and B, because you never know who you're going to make an impact on. And that's really, I think, why at our core, one of the reasons why we do it is because it's like you want to better someone's life, ultimately. You want to make an impact in that person's life. And so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. My next thing for you, and I can definitely say this, and this is definitely very much true within the 5 people who do everything now. You might even be surprised I'm about to say this, but you are so even-keeled and so like level-headed, which is I think a very rare quality, especially like when like performances start to come about. You get like, oh, game time, here we go, like whatever. I've never seen you visibly nervous before a show. I've never seen you visibly like needing to go off in the corner and like be away from everybody. It's like, hey, we're just putting on a show, we're just having fun, like let's just do this thing. Not to say that everybody else who does everything now is that way, because they're not, but you specifically just have this ability to just sort of ride the wave, I think, which is really nice, and go with the flow. Maybe on the inside, you're freaking out. But on the outside, it appears to me that I'm like, oh man, this guy is a pro. This guy is very, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's very much he's ready to ride the wave, basically. So I really admire that, because I try and emulate that, but I know on the inside I'm like, fuck this, I don't want to do that. This sucks. So I think that's very nice, and maybe just for my own, personal edification of being like, oh man, someone actually is capable of doing that. But I think it's true, and I think other people would say the same thing.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually was just having somebody asked me the other day about whether or not I get nervous about performing on Everything Now. And it's interesting because before Improv Inc. shows in college, I would get horribly anxious, like really sweaty, just panicking the whole day. Especially for my senior year, I was the president, and so I had to like pick the lineups and stuff, and there would be like a lot of anxiety over like how a show would go, because I felt like the entire show, regardless of if I was even performing, would sort of like reflect on my leadership or whatever during that thing, and then the actual performance, and it's live in front of whatever 250 people. All that stuff really affected me as a performer. Whereas on improv or with Everything Now, the performance stuff, I feel almost no anxiety ever. Like I'm with my 5 or 4 most trusted friends who I just feel totally comfortable with. I'm performing in front of the chat, who are faceless, nameless people, or people who, so it's either I don't care about you because you are just an anonymous username who I'll never meet in real life, or you are a person who I've come to know because you like the show, and so I know that you support me, and you are as willing to see me experiment with something that might bomb or might be, like a stretch, or, take creative chances. So like there's people like Sunbro 8068 or Aiden Wood or Squishy Tay, who are like, they're the homies, so I don't have to feel nervous performing in front of them, because I know they'll love me either way. But to the point about being nervous for Everything Now, the one thing that does always, still to this day, make me nervous about Everything Now is the tech stuff, which I, particularly when we're trying a new format that is particular, and especially now that with the pandemic, so much of our show has now become reliant on like call-ins and guests calling in remotely, and like it has sort of pushed the technical limits of the show and how that works. And because I'm like one of the main people who live in the house where the show takes place, I end up doing a lot of the tech stuff just by happenstance. And so that is something that makes me nervous, because I do worry a lot about like, if something fucks up for somebody else on the show, like somebody else's bit gets stepped on or chopped off, or like a guest's audio is bad, or like they can't have a connection, like something like that will make me nervous, where it's like, bits are either they'll work or they won't. You have to take some amount of risk with any sort of comedic bit.
Right.
But like things like technical aspects where like there is an amount of work that you can get done before the show to ensure that it works smoothly, and like sometimes I just don't have time to do it, or I'm just lazy and don't do it.
Right.
That is the stuff that I definitely get nervous about, of just like making sure that the show goes off the hitch so that everybody who is performing can feel comfortable and look good.
Totally. No, 100%. The technological aspect is tricky as well, because it's like you can only do so much, and if something's going to glitch out or whatever, there's nothing you can do about that, but it still affects the show. And obviously the people who watch everything now are amazing and cool, and so they wouldn't be like, what the fuck, but it still affects the show, regardless of how much you try and play it off like it doesn't. So the technology's great. What my dad likes to say is technology's great when it works, and he's Gen X, so that is a very cool thing for him to say.
That is very cool.
So
okay, cool. Well, I think I have one more nice thing to say to you to bring us to a grand total of 5 nice things.
Yeah.
And so, and J-Nell says sometimes it makes it funnier. I think to the point of the technical issues on the show, and I appreciate that. And I actually agree with that. That some of the funniest moments on the show have come from glitches and unanticipated problems with the tech. So, and other times it completely ruins the show.
Right.
So one more nice thing to say about you, and this will actually, I'm going to touch back on something that we talked about when I was complimenting you earlier, and this might almost seem like not a compliment. I hope it doesn't come off that way, and I'll try to explain it if it does. That you are somebody who is able to be, and I don't want to say mean because that makes it not sound like a compliment, but there's a certain way that you can comfortably like shit on a thing or be critical of a thing that certain people cannot, where it's just awkward,
right.
or like it comes off like you genuinely are being a mean person. And I feel like you are somebody who can be critical of things or like make fun of things in a way that is like how friends can like rib each other, and it never crosses a line, and it actually makes you feel more comfortable being like in a situation where you feel comfortable to like gently rib each other and make fun of each other. And I feel like I don't have that relationship with a lot of people, but I do feel like we have a relationship, and you particularly are good at like finding ways to like very comfortably jab at people in a way that makes them feel more comfortable instead of like more
100%.
insecure in themselves, which I think is a unique skill.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of putting it. I don't even know if I am conscious of it, I think it's just sort of how it is. Our Fed Busiglio, who I do the YLG videos with, is very good at that as well. I think he and I like go back and forth with each other pretty hard sometimes, but I never feel I'm like, oh, this person's actually being mean to me, this person like loves me. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is like, I feel like if I actually didn't like somebody, I wouldn't say it. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't actually like that person, it would just be like, I'm just gonna avoid it, not even gonna bring it up. But if I want to, and I feel like it's okay to bring up, then that probably means, hey, don't worry about it. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. All right, we have to move on because it's now been 2 hours.
Keep moving on.
It's been 2 hours, and we are on question. What is this? Now 24, I believe.
It's not coming up. Oh yes. Okay, here we go.
I'm just gonna put up 24. I don't know if we were actually on this one. Oh wow, this is kind of a heavy one.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel about your relationship with your mother, Jake? Oh jeez.
My relationship with my mother is pretty good. It was really rough in high school. I feel
sure.
like I think that's pretty typical for a lot of people when you're going through puberty or whatever, and your hormones are raging, and you have to live in the same house. And after I moved away, our relationship improved tremendously, I feel like.
Totally.
Where it just like we were not forced to live in the same house all the time. And now I would say our relationship is pretty good, other than my one major issue with my mom is that she is an advice giver, and she like relentlessly, especially now since like the world is going to shit and like everything, there's just problems abound and potential like so many reasons to give advice because there are so many things that like are going wrong just in the world. She just loves to give advice, and I don't need advice all the time.
Mom, I'm not asking.
Yeah.
Get away.
But yeah, I would say other than that one critique, which I think she would probably, we've had the discussion about that, and I'm sure she would have some advice for me to cope with that.
I'm sure she would.
But yeah, that's how our relationship is. How about you?
You know, it's been interesting because my parents got divorced when I was going into second grade, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to live with my mom like the majority of the time, and then I would go see my dad like for the weekends basically. And then that changed when I got older, and I don't know if this is shitty or not, but it's the truth. My dad had a nicer house, and I had like more amenities and like more shit there, and so like I could actually function better there. And so I decided when I was 12 that I was gonna go basically live with him, you know, do the reverse or whatever, where I lived with my dad more and I saw my mom on the weekends more or less. Eventually basically just living at my dad's place full time and then seeing my mom, you know, like within pockets of time. But that's just the reality of divorced parent life, basically. And when we were in high school, we also had our disagreements and our butting of heads. And then the second I went off to school, our relationship improved tenfold. And then there was some stuff that I don't really want to get into on the show that there's no reason to, but was like kind of health related on her end, where we sort of butted heads about some things and our relationship sort of saw a rough patch. But I am happy to say now that we are back. What is, I guess, two peas in a pod, basically. We're back swinging for the fences. And so up and down, I guess, for lack of a better term. But, you know, right now, we're on the ups, baby. It's looking good.
Hell yeah, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, man.
All right, we're going to move on. I think that was the last question of that round, actually. So now you know it, you love it. It's time for...
Another chemistry check.
Another chemistry check. And who's still watching this show? If you are,
anybody?
If you are, please let us know how we're doing. And for this next round, no, I think in the interest of time, we're just going to switch off every other question.
Oh, perfect. So you'll ask me one, and then okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll only be answering each question once as opposed to twice.
Yes.
And wow, look at that. We are...
We're sitting pretty.
We are crushing it, according to Jane Ells, whose opinion I value. And Sunbro is coming in too. And as I suspected, yeah, the vibes are only improving. In fact,
yeah, good vibes only, baby.
We've got 3 answers, and for me, that's enough.
That's enough. That's plenty.
And so, I mean, there's really nowhere else to go from here. We're at the peak, so the only place it could possibly go at this point is down, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I don't foresee that happening. We'll see. We've got 12 more questions, and we're gonna be running through these quickly. So
all right.
I'm gonna ask you this one, and you will not get to ask me this question. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you wanna hear my answer, maybe hit me up outside of the show or tune in.
Okay.
Tune in for a future episode where potentially I will answer this question. But I'm gonna. Oh wait, this one we actually both. Okay, so I think only you will do this. So you will make 3 true we statements, and I'll also put the caveat that you can't use any of the things that we said that we both have in common in that earlier question.
Okay. So a we statement just meaning 2 things about both of us that are true?
I think so.
Okay. Fuck, they really put me on the spot here, really testing my improv prowess here.
It's round 3, baby. It's supposed to be hard.
It's round 3. Okay. We are great at talking to each other on this show.
I think that's true.
That's true. That's number 1. Number 2, we... Yikes.
It's tough.
Okay. Yeah, this is fucked up. We We both love performing on Everything Now show. That's number 2.
That's true. You need one more.
Okay. Number 3. We both at one point lived in Los Angeles.
That's true too. And here's some other options that you could have chosen from the chat. Wiganarian says, "We be dope," which would have been a pretty good answer.
That would have been a way better answer.
We both have hair. We both have hair. We both have noses. So those are all, really good. Good answers that you could have selected. But I like the ones that you chose. And we do have
Thanks.
to move on, unfortunately.
Yeah. So our question 26 says, complete this sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share, then fill in the blank.
Wow, that one feels harder than the one that I asked you.
Maybe.
I wish that I had someone with whom I could share. I don't know. You could read into this two ways, where it's like share like a secret, like share some sort of knowledge, or share like literally like an experience. And I lean towards like an experience. So I think someone who I could share travel. Again, I don't know if that's a repeat answer, but just like if I do want to travel, definitely, like that's on my list of things, that I want to do before I die or whatever. But specifically, I think it would be way more fun and meaningful to do it with somebody. It doesn't even really, it matters who, as they can't suck, but I don't have a specific person, but I think I would want somebody to share that experience with. Just like the experience of traveling and seeing the world.
Right, so you would not travel with Chris then, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. I wouldn't travel with him either. I'm glad we're on the same. We would both not travel with Chris.
Yes, if only that question had come next. But unfortunately, the next question is this one, which is, if you were going to become a close friend with your partner being me in this situation, please share what would be important for him or her to know.
Oh my God. You weren't fucking around with these third round of questions.
No, round
these
3 is where it gets really heavy.
Yeah, this is insane. So share something with you if we were possibly going to be close friends.
Yes.
Share something with you that I would think you need to know.
Yes. So I suppose in that way, since I consider us pretty close friends, I may already know this about you, but if you want to share something that I might not already know about you that you would think would benefit our relationship in some way, this would be a good time to share that too.
Okay, this is again.
You have 3.
Forgot all about that. I'm not going to skip this one. Potentially, you could call this a repeat answer. I'm not going to call it because it's slightly different. But something that I know about myself that I did continually try and work on is that I do tend to take things personally. And so that is something I know about myself. I know that is something that I'm continually working on. And so if you ever have a problem with something that I'm doing, I would prefer that you be upfront with me and tell me, as opposed to trying to avoid it, because I think that more the conflict of telling me something that potentially might be uncomfortable in that moment is better than potentially not addressing it at all. That is what I would like to share with you. How's that?
That's really good. Actually, I think that is helpful for me. I'm not sure, there's not a specific context that I feel like I'm thinking like I wish I had done this or that and relating with Noah, but going forward, it will be something that I keep in mind for sure.
Thank you so much. And yeah, there we go.
Okay, great. Let's move on to this one. Oh, this is one that I added, which I really like this question.
Okay, Jake, so the question says, what is a lie you told when you were a child? And this is just a great question.
Thank you. And I'm kind of sad that I don't get to ask you this question because I did. There's something that
Here's the thing. I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna break the rules and answer this one anyway. Is that
great.
okay?
Okay, yeah. But let me answer first because I did. You did ask me first, but I am curious to hear your answer. And one that I always think of that I think is funny to me now in hindsight. Something that I'll pervasive lie from my childhood. One that I almost convinced myself was true, probably for how often I told it, was that I had my best friend, my aforementioned best friend, from whom the anecdote about the Crash Bandicoot story was from. That best friend, he had, and I don't even know if this is true, but he allegedly, his first cousin was an offensive lineman on the Indianapolis Colts, and I forget the guy's name, but I just stole that concept. I just stole that fact from him, and it was just like the perfect, totally could be true, no way to prove it, but kind of cool, especially when you're an adolescent boy, to have any connection to professional sports in that way.
Totally.
And so I would tell everybody that my cousin was, I want to say his name was I don't even remember anymore.
I remember the Colts, the famous Colt lineman from that time. Now, I might be shocking you right now with this. There was a guy named Jeff Saturday who was the center. Does that name ring any bells?
Jeff Saturday, but it wasn't him. I think it was the left guard or whatever that position is, the furthest most left person. I don't know. But yeah, that is a lie that I told a lot. To the point where I almost convinced myself that this guy was my cousin, probably.
Damn.
But he's not. It's not true.
Okay, well, very good lie, I think, actually. There's I think everyone when they're I want to say kindergarten to third grade. I feel I don't know how this happens. I was actually listening to a podcast about this where they talked about this very thing. But the two lies that were very white lies, I guess, in elementary school, kindergarten, that I used to tell all the time were, one, that I had great white shark riding lessons, and that I would learn how to ride a great white shark over the summer and then on weekends.
On weekends.
On weekends, taking a stroll over to SeaWorld all the way in San Diego, learning how to ride the great whites. And then the other one, which I feel that one maybe have been a little bit more specific to me, of being what's cooler than taming a shark, when you're 6 years old.
Sure.
The one that I think is a little bit more universal is my cousin is in the army and has a gun and something like that. I like an older person who has a weapon. I think everybody knows a kid or has said the lie about how their cousin is in the army or owns a huge gun or something.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a defensive lie where it's don't fuck with me because I know I know dangerous people
who have a gun who are gonna kill you with that gun. So
track you down and kill you with their gun. That's
so
a great lie.
Those were the two big lies from elementary school: the gun one and the shark one.
I think those are both great. I also want to read one. I think this is what this is. It's from Papa Dong 420 in the chat, who is sharing this comment. My boxers being broken in half by my mom was just some hot glue accident, which I am assuming. I think I understand that lie. It took me a second to understand. I think that is Jizz reference. I think he's saying that he came in his boxers, maybe, and that they snapped in half because they were hard to come.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's true. If that's not what you meant to be saying, then that is very much more telling about my perspective and perhaps me tattling on myself. But I do think that's what Papa Dog 420 meant, and unfortunately we can't really spend too much more time delving into that because we must move on to question 29, which I will be asking you.
Yep.
And that is, for what in your life do you feel most grateful?
So this is actually something that I've been working on a little writing piece right now where I'm actually talking about this, and especially right now with the pandemic and moving away from Los Angeles for a temporary amount of time. I really just feel most grateful for family and friends right now. That's what I feel most grateful for. When I do get to do something like this where I actually get to see you and actually talk to you and I don't have to like interact with you on my phone. You know, it's great. And being able to know that I'm, you know, with family right now, and that we've made that decision to just sort of be together right now. As annoying as it can be at times, you know, I'm not going to say that it's all, you know, peaches and cream all the time. It can be a little bit annoying. It feels like I'm back in high school to a certain degree, but I'm grateful that they're here, and I'm grateful that I get to see them on a regular basis. You know, that is one nice thing about this whole thing, is that I made the decision to go back and so I can see them. And, you know, really just making a concerted effort to actually talk to people right now and feeling grateful. It's like, oh, wow, I'm talking to a lot of different people. I had a lot of people in my life that I talked to and talked with me. So that's what I feel most grateful for right now.
Absolutely. I would agree with you, but I'm actually not allowed to answer this part of the question. So
yeah, that's true.
We are going to go on to question 30.
How many more questions do we have?
There's 36 total, so we're coming
36,
up on the
okay.
end of them.
All right, finish line here, folks. Stay with us. Question 30. When did you last cry in front of another person? And then there's a follow-up that says, by yourself.
Wow, and again, I seem to get the really heavy, hard ones. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Okay, last time I cried in front of a person... long time, I think, probably. I really don't, well, that's not true. I cry alone, I feel like, pretty frequently at podcasts.
Wow.
Almost all the times that I've cried recently and memorably have been alone, and they've all been listening, usually to like The Moth or
Sure.
or This American Life. Just like these types of podcasts that tell harrowing, dramatic stories, like true stories about people's
Sure.
experiences. I'm like really affected by those. And also I feel like there's a comfortability to cry when I'm like alone in my car, which is typically when I'm listening to podcasts. So I feel like it's way easier to cry when I'm just in a safe space alone in my little car listening to a sad thing. So that would definitely be when I've cried most recently. When I cried in front of a person most recently, gosh, it's really hard to think. Like a long time. The most memorable would be like probably like when I broke up with my girlfriend in like sophomore year of college. But that was like 5 years ago, which is crazy to think about.
Sure.
To go 5 years without crying in front of somebody. But I think that might be it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. That
does seem like a long time.
I've gone to like funerals and stuff and I felt emotional, but like, I don't know. I think I cried at Rocky's mom's funeral actually. Where I cried,
oh, wow.
in front of my friends who I went to that with. So that was more recently that was after we graduated. That was probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I wasn't there, wasn't invited, wasn't really, you know, friends with Rocky at that time, but like I have to imagine, you know, being at that, obviously, you know, feeling, you know, grief for your friend, and, you know, you also have to, you know, you can't help but editorialize it in your own mind of like, oh shit, like I will probably be at my own parents' funeral one day, you know?
Totally.
And that is crazy.
Yeah, that was absolutely part of it. Yeah, for sure. All right, we gotta move on. We must.
Let's get the fuck out of here, dude. All right.
I'm asking you this question, which is,
yes.
This is another one that I put in here to replace a different question. I don't remember what the original question was, but it is, not that it matters at all, what is a piece of creative work that is meaningful to you in some way?
Damn, there's a lot, man. There's a lot. It's crazy, like, because when I think about it, I'm like, damn, there's so much. And then when I actually like go on Letterboxd.com and I like look at like out of the 2,000 plus movies that I've logged on there, and only like 115 of them have like 5 stars or whatever, I'm like, oh, maybe there's not like ultimately that much. But the first one that comes to mind right now because his newest movie just came out, and I was like very perplexed by it and don't know how to like talk about it yet. Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York.
Thank you. You will
Oh
never.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you, Wavy Lines.
Thank you, Wavy
Holy
Lines.
shit, 16 months. That's a lot.
Holy shit, yeah.
That's a long
Way to
time.
go, Wavy Lines. But he's been top of mind recently. Synecdoche, New York is a monumental film. Have you seen Synecdoche, New York?
I need to see it again because I think that's one of those movies that is just so dense, not in like the traditional sense that it's hard to understand, although it is also hard to understand.
Yes.
But there's just so much packed into it, like, you know, in all of Charlie Kaufman's movies, but especially I think I can never say it, but that movie.
Synecdoche, New York.
Synecdoche, yeah, absolutely. It's on my list to watch again.
It is just amazing. I almost said adaptation instead. Adaptation was like the high school Kaufman that like really pushed me through, and then the older I get, the more Synecdoche sort of like starts to overshadow adaptation a little bit for like the Kaufman that like means the most. Because just as an artistic figure, I look up to him so much, just with what he's been able to create and the like stories that he's been able to tell, both as a director and as a writer and everything. I have his book right now that I'm trying to read as well. But Synecdoche, New York, it's brutal. It's so many ideas. It's very artistically liberating to look at that and go like, oh shit, like theoretically you could make something like that, you know, and that was a movie that came out and people saw. I know it tanked, but it's a big movie for people. And I don't know, that scene with the preacher at the funeral where he's delivering that monologue where he's like, everything is more complex and convoluted than you may think. And do you know the scene that I'm talking about where he's talking to Philip Seymour Hoffman, but there's like they're staging a funeral?
Oh yeah, and it's his own funeral? Am I thinking of it?
It's his own funeral.
Yes.
And it's the guy who played the main boss in the first season of Silicon Valley, that actor.
Yes.
Yes. That scene, I watch that scene every couple months, dude, just to get a fucking reality check sometimes. Like, that scene is unbelievable. And to think that scene was added in as like a reshoot thing for them to just throw into the movie, and that actor only had like a day or something to memorize that monologue, just makes that moment all the more incredible. I think about that moment on the daily, on the weekly. So that's my answer. You know, that's top of mind for me right now. Do you want to answer that one because it's a pretty cool one, or do you want to move on?
I do kind of want to answer it, but I also feel like we need to move on. And I mostly I just want to say that your answer has inspired me to revisit that movie, because I remember liking it a lot. I think I watched it probably like early in college, but I think I would probably get a lot more out of it now revisiting it.
Yeah.
We are going to move on to the next question, which is... We just did that one.
Yep, alrighty.
This one.
What, if anything, is too serious to be joked about? It's a good question.
That's a good question. I did not write that one. That one came from the real list. I don't know. My perspective with comedy is... and the things that you're able to joke about has pretty much always been the topic does not matter as much as the audience. So pretty much anything can be joked about. Like like people love to talk about, like 9/11, the Holocaust, cancer, like all these like super heavy topics. But I think we've all seen comedians broach those topics in one way or another in ways that are, maybe not funny to us in that moment, but like are not horribly offensive. I think the biggest thing is context, like who your audience is and what their connection is to the thing that you are making fun of, and also your connection to that thing. Like, of course, like, if you had a personal experience with 9/11 or something, like Pete Davidson is constantly, his dad died in 9/11, so like Pete Davidson making a joke about 9/11 is way different than some random guy who was on the other side of the country and has no affiliation to it, making a joke to, and then that person making a joke to a group of people who survived, who were in the tower, compared to a group of people who, you went to high school with. Like, that also matters. So, I mean, to answer the question, I don't think there's any one specific topic that can't be made fun of in some way. It just depends on who's making fun of it, how they're making fun of it, and who they're making fun of it to.
The audience piece of it, that's a great point, because it's not necessarily the topic isn't inherently, forbidden or taboo. It's just, who the hell are you telling the joke to? It's a great point.
True, yeah, and I wish you could expand on your perspective on that, but that was my question, and you're not allowed to, and we do have to move on to the next
I'm a big
question.
fucking idiot.
Four more. This is a question for you, Noah, and apparently it's extremely long. If you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone? Whoa, this one's pretty heavy. And why haven't you told them yet? And remember, you do have 3 skips.
I'm not using my skips, baby. I'm not using those skips. So basically the question is, if I were to die right now, not having communicated with someone, what would I regret having not said?
Yes.
I mean, this again might sound like a cop-out answer, but I truly do mean this. Just not having the opportunity to tell people I love that I love them, like one last time, so to speak, like just even the thought of that is like hard to wrap my head around, actually, now that I'm like sitting here saying it out loud. So I would, would love for
real quick.
Hey, Chris is here.
Noah, I had a quick question.
Can you hear him? I can't even tell.
I can.
Oh, great.
Do you tell people that you love them every day?
Do I tell people that I love them every day?
Yeah, like theoretically you're saying, oh, if I didn't get to tell my dad or something that I love him.
I tell my dad I love him every day, probably, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about the rest of these people?
I mean, probably not every day, no.
Something to think about. If that's the thing you're sad about, maybe start doing it more. Because then you won't have that fear.
It was great to talk to you, Chris. It was great to talk to you.
You can have a better thing to be worried about than that.
Honestly, it was so great to talk to you. This is unfortunately my question and not yours.
And this is the part actually, at question
really
36 or 34, Chris is going to come in every time and check. Just check in on if you really feel, good about your answer and if you really thought about it.
Yeah, I actually hated that. But I mean it. Yeah, I think I do mean it, and I hate that Chris came in and kind of ruined the moment a little bit, so to speak. But yeah, I would probably just want to tell people that I love them if I knew that that's what I would say.
Well, like Chris said, man, you should really you should tell them.
You should really fucking tell people that. Yeah.
When you could be telling the people that you love them. But unfortunately, as much as I'd love to really delve into that, we do have to move on to the...
Thank you, you will never escape.
Oh wait, yeah, it's this one. It's the 34th question, which you are...
Yes, the 34th question.
Papa Dong 420 is coming in with the Tier 1 subscription.
Shout out Papa Dong 420.
Thank you, Papa Dong 420. And now, if you would, please.
Yes, so this question says, your house containing everything you own catches fire. After saving loved ones and pets, you have time to safely make a final dash to save any one item. What would it be and why?
Thanks for that question, Noah.
Yeah, of course.
I think, as boring of an answer as this is, it would be my computer. I think my computer, I mean, obviously, I think it's probably the most, monetarily valuable thing that I own right now, other than my car, which would not be in my house.
Right.
But, so it's an expensive piece of equipment. But more than that, I think my computer has all my life on it. A lot of my stuff is backed up to the cloud or whatever, but, there's my computer hard drive has, old videos that I made in college and high school and Word documents with journals and creative writing assignments and stuff that I've done over the years and just a ton of photos. So aside from it being just a really valuable thing that would be expensive to replace, there's also a lot of sentimental. I mean, I also own other sentimental stuff. But I think nothing that is beyond the amount of sentimental material that is in my computer.
Listen, it's a great answer. It is boring, but it's a great answer.
It is boring. I wish that wasn't my answer. I wish I had like something that is more valuable than that, but I really don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of stuff. I mean, I feel like I do have a lot of stuff. Maybe, I don't know. If I looked in my room, I could probably get rid of. You know, they do that Marie Kondo thing where you throw away everything that doesn't spark joy or whatever. I mean, I do have little sentimental things that I would be sad if they burn, for sure. But like I said, I think there's more of that kind of stuff on my computer than exists in any one specific, object. And we've got
I would
some
love
answers.
to
I would love to
extrapolate
hear
on
answers
that.
from the chat too, also. So if you have answers to your questions, we didn't really do that this episode, but please. I know Squishy Tay is saying, torn between a stuffed dragon Beanie Baby and a copy of The Wee Free Man by Terry Pratchett. So I don't know that book, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that book.
We do have to move on. And we're at the now penultimate question.
So this is your last question that you're asking me.
This is the last question that I'm asking you. And actually, I feel like these last two questions maybe we should both do just because it would feel weird to end the show on a question for me when you're the guest. So I think we'll both answer both of these questions. But I will ask you this question first, which is, what is an unusual fear of yours?
Damn. Like, when I think of, like, an unusual fear, the first thing that comes to mind is, like, a phobia, you know? But, like, arachnophobia, like, I hate spiders, you know? Like, I really don't like those, but that's not really, like, all that weird. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't like spiders, so...
Sure.
Then there's also things like irrational fears, you know? That's just like, well, if I do this, then this thing will happen, and it's like, I think those, you know... I couldn't tell you one off the top of my head, but I think them, you know, and they're not rational, they're irrational, but I think them from time to time. I don't have like a good answer for this, unfortunately.
Is there one that's top of mind that's not like it doesn't have to necessarily be the most unusual or the most thing that you most fear, but something that comes to mind?
So when I was a little kid, my grandma took me to the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, which is abbreviated to OMSI, and they had a exhibit about disease. And we went into this dark room, and there was an animatronic plague doctor.
Oh my god!
That just operated and would do shit like this and like looked down, and it had like the long ass like plague mask that you see in those photos. And so I think that kind of freaked me out a little bit for like mascots when I was younger, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I was like, my sister feels the same exact way too, or at least she did when she was younger. We were both very afraid of like mascots. Like I was like got over it for Disneyland, or maybe it like happened after the first time I went to Disneyland as a young kid, but like mascots, like seeing those things walk around, like they're still a little bit creepy to me. Like I'm still like, oh, that's like not natural. Like that's not cool to see, but that might be the answer, to be honest with you.
That's a pretty good one. I feel like that's pretty unusual.
And are you going to answer that one as well?
I will answer that one, although I likewise don't really have a great answer for this one. I think top of mind for me is calling people on their birthday.
Okay.
Even like family members. I mean, maybe it's a specific thing to my family where like it is expected of you to call everybody within the immediate family on their birthday to wish them happy birthday, which feels like a normal thing, and is, I feel like, a normal thing among a lot of people's families, but I still do it, but I always get so, for no reason, it's my family. I'm like, I'll be like calling my brother, who I love, and it's easy to talk to, but like, for some reason, I get this very bizarre, like, anxiety or fear of like, I don't know what the fear is, I don't know what I'm afraid is going to happen, but there's some like, and it's more broadly just talking on the phone in general, but specifically for birthdays.
Sure.
I don't know why that is a weird one.
Well, I was just going to say that I think like a lot of people have phone anxiety, you know, like I think a lot of people have like the anxiety of like, oh shit, I have to call this person, or we have to hash this out over the phone. And I don't know if that's because texting has sort of like taken that thing as an option, like we can just text this out or we can do this over text. There's just certain things that you should not do over text that have to be done over the phone if you can't meet in person. And it can be a little bit, it's like that other question, like, do you rehearse phone calls or whatever? It's like, it can be anxiety inducing sometimes to talk on the phone to someone, especially like family members that aren't immediate, like family members that are a little bit removed. It's like, oh, my grandfather wants me to talk to his cousin on the phone. And it's like, I don't know this person. That sounds like the last thing I want to be doing right now. But
or like a family friend who's like not even part of your family, but like it's a friend of your parents or something. And they're like, this person was in your life so much when you were a young child, and like you should connect with them now as an adult after not having seen them in years.
It's fucked up. It actually is fucked up.
It's fucked up that they would make you do that. All right, we're going to go on now to the very last question. The last question. And then, of course, there will be a chemistry check. So stay tuned for that. This one's
all right,
pretty
Jake.
Heavy. You go. You can ask me first.
Yeah, Jake, here we go. Last question. Share a personal problem and ask your partner's advice on how he or she might handle it.
Pretty good one. Pretty heavy. A personal problem. I'll go back to this thing with my mom, because I do. It is, I mean, it's not really a problem, but my mom is incessantly trying to give me advice, and I don't know how to broach the issue without seeming ungrateful, because I mean, obviously it means that she cares a lot about me, that she did, and I know she does.
Right.
She's my mom, so like obviously all of it is from a place of love. But it feels harsh to be like, stop telling me what to do. There's like not, it's about like trying to put up boundaries in some healthy way.
Exactly.
And I haven't totally figured out what the best way to do that is. So how would you approach a situation like that?
It's a great question. Setting boundaries with parents as we get older seems to be just a thing that everybody kind of struggles with, I think. I'm starting to realize that more and more as I get older and talk to people about your relationship with your parents. How I would do it is pretty much the only way that I think I can give this piece of advice. I don't know if you've tried this already, but what I would probably do next time you're on the phone with her and she actually does it, she's actually in the act of doing it, I would say, Mom, what you're doing right now, you need to stop. And I would tell her, if I need some advice or if I have a problem with something, I promise you I will ask you. But I don't want unrequited advice. It bothers me. And that's probably what I would say, more or less.
That's a great, I totally respect the being direct, and it's something that I definitely don't do enough. I think I do it somewhat with my parents. And what you did say at the end there that I will really take with me and I think would be useful is that to promise that I will ask for her advice when I need it, and maybe even to take it a step further and try to genuinely ask her for advice for some things, because I think I don't do that enough, and maybe that's probably why she feels compelled to give me advice unsolicited so often. And if there were things, which I'm sure there are, that I could proactively try to ask her things, low stakes things that it would genuinely be nice to get another perspective on. If I was a little bit better about doing that, I feel like she would probably feel less pressure to constantly giving me advice. So
I'm glad that
you helped me with that.
I'm glad I actually helped you with that. I didn't know if I was going to be able to, but the direct thing is tough. It can be tough to be direct with anybody, but especially parents.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now it's your turn, Noah. Let me help you.
Damn, okay. Personal problem? I'm trying to think. I might have to stress the truth maybe a little bit on some of these right now. Don't know, because it's like, I don't know, it's tough because it's like I'm only interacting with like my dad and my sister, I guess, like right now, so it's like I'm not really interacting with a ton of people, but I guess, here's one. Well, I have something that I'm working on right now, of creative thing, and I'm scared to release it because it's the most maybe vulnerable I've been about a certain aspect of my life, but for sure the most open and directly honest about an aspect of my life. and I'm afraid to put it out there because I don't want to be rejected, I guess, for lack of a better term, in like the larger sense of people like not receiving it well, or just maybe straight up not ignoring it and having it not have the reception that I want. So I guess my question to you is, what would you say to me, or what advice would you give to sort of remedy that? I know that's like a very different thing and like a very internal thing, but I'll still ask it.
That is a good question. I mean, I wish I had a good answer for you. It's something that I feel like I struggle with all the time. Maybe
Sure.
even, I mean, to the point that we made earlier about, or I made earlier about something I admire about you and your willingness to actually take that first step and put things out. I think, I mean, maybe that would be part of my advice to you, is that you have already, I think, put out a ton of stuff about yourself, for better or worse, or maybe without even realizing how vulnerable and open you've been in so much of your work already. I mean, in your podcast, and then coming on this show and doing this with me right now.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I can't speak to how people will react to it. Obviously, it's up to them to decide, and you know this. But what I can at least maybe point your focus towards is the feeling that you've had already so far from releasing things that are maybe comparable, or even opening up already. Like, you know that feeling that it is nerve-wracking, obviously, to put something out there, but ultimately there is like a pretty substantial reward of like just having that, first of all, just having it off of your chest, of just having
Absolutely.
it be like out there, and it's like, now I don't have to have that be hidden anymore. But also just like, even if some people do reject it, like, and that's something that I found super rewarding with everything now, is that there will be almost certainly some population of people that will really take something from it. And like that
Yes.
little bit of like opening yourself up and being vulnerable to those people, and especially, I mean, everything now and Twitch is so great because it's instant. And I don't know what
Right.
medium this creative thing that you're doing is. It might not be something where there's a chat who can literally tell you how you're doing immediately
Right.
as you're doing it. That's one of the great things about live streaming. But whatever the medium is, I think just by nature of being vulnerable, I think people will respect that, and I think you will probably get some feedback that is, you know, really encouraging, and probably will make you feel good about having done it in the way that you probably have
Yeah.
already to a certain extent with the stuff that you've already made.
Yeah, 100%. This is this would be, I guess, publicly an uncharted territory, I guess, something that I don't think I've talked about publicly ever, and it's like, you know, I guess for lack of a better term, is a big part of, I guess, my life or my story, I guess. Not that it defines me or whatever, but you're 100% right. And I just have to get the monkey on my back. And part of that thing is just like, oh, well, it's not ready yet. You know, like, it's like, oh, this thing, I'm not ready to put this out there, which normally, I gotta be honest, I don't have a problem with. I feel like, okay, I'm gonna work on this for a little bit and then put it out, see how it goes. This one, because of the vulnerability aspect, I'm like, damn, like, this one really is not ready yet. So that's my biggest hurdle to overcome. But I know you're right. It's just a matter of like accepting, okay, it's done, put it out there. Some people will, people will respond to it, one way or the other, hopefully, the way you want. And if not, move on to the next thing.
You will never escape.
Absolutely.
Look at that.
And on that note, Squishy Tay is gonna sub for 10 months. Thank you. I know this is a comedy show, and I know this is a comedy show as well, but I love this segment, juxtaposing sincerity and sharing with humor with character, and character is a really sweet combo. And thank you. That's really sweet, Squishy Tay. That's pretty much exactly what I was going for. So I'm really stoked that you're into it, and hopefully this is, this is the end. So there's only one thing, well, there's maybe two things left to do, but this is an important thing, of course. At the end of the final chemistry check, I have a feeling I know how this one's gonna go, but we do have to do it. After every 12 question segment, we do ask the audience, we poll the audience, how do you feel like our chemistry, now having asked all 36 questions to fall in love, please answer honestly. How would you rate our chemistry, Noah and I, after this first episode? Hopefully one of many to come.
Okay, we're getting some fives. That's
We're
all
getting
right.
Some fives. Oh, wait.
All right, a 4
Wait, I
sneaked in
appreciate
there.
the honesty. I think, Oh, Papa John's
So-
420.
2, come on, man.
Interesting.
The
All
fuck?
right. I'm gonna close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh yeah.
Come
I guess
on.
I should make it more clear which one is good because to Aiden's point, 5 is good. Yes, I'll make.
Yeah,
that
5 is
clear
the
the next
best.
time we do this. But it looks like most people selected 5, so that is encouraging. I would have to agree. Noah, I think we're a match.
Yes.
I think we're in love.
I think we are. We will be doing a pandemic wedding.
Yes. We're gonna be zooming into our wedding. It's gonna be a Zoom officiated. You guys are all invited to the Zoom ceremony as well as the Zoom party afterwards, which I forget
Yeah.
what it's called, reception.
The actual wedding ceremony itself will be a lift segment, and then the actual after party will be a Barley's Bar segment.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Noah, thank you for what do you think about the show? Was it? I mean, it's way too long. I think.
Yeah, it is way too long.
Than 3 hours. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just from your experience having done the show, did you like the switching off every question thing, or how would you make it shorter? Do you think we could skip questions? Not to make this now even longer and literally workshop my show with me, but if you have any top of mind ideas.
I think that there's just some questions in there that you just aren't as interesting or can be doubled with another question. I think we pointed them out. There's questions in there that seem like basic repeats, of things that we've already covered. And I would just, how many are there? You said there's 36 questions right now?
For those of you in the chat who don't know, I posted it in the Discord, but this is a real list of 36 questions that was published by some sociologist as the preeminent list of questions to fall in love with somebody, that if you answer all these questions, you'll be in love or something. But it has already been editorialized for the purpose of this show, so there's no reason why we couldn't change it even more. It's just a jumping off point.
I mean, definitely 36 seems like it might be a little bit too long to do on the reg, but for a trial run, I think it was good. We got to answer all the questions. We got to, take them for a drive, see which ones sparked, the most discussion, and it will obviously be different with other people, and not everybody's me. As much as I wish everyone was me, not everyone's going to be. That's, a tough fact of life. But
Sure.
I would just go through and honestly pick maybe the 20 that are the best. I feel like 20 might be a good number, maybe 24, 36 seems like it's pushing it a little bit because you definitely want a variety of content, but 36 might be too much. And I like being able to, it only feels right for each person to weigh in on the question a little bit. It feels almost weird for the other person not to say anything almost, I feel like, but that's just me talking as the guest.
No,
as the
I
host,
agree.
I'm sure you wanted to.
Yeah, I think, the conceit of the show is we're supposed to be falling in love with each other, so I do feel if all the focus is, but it's also an interview show, so part of me feels most of the attention should be on the guest, because
Right.
they're going to be different every time, and eventually if they're asking me the same questions over and over again every episode, the audience is going to know my answers to everything.
Right.
But I also feel if I'm not answering all the questions, then I'm not connecting with the person, which is the conceit of the show, that we're supposed to be getting connected with each other.
You got a little bit of a double-edged sword on your hands,
Yeah.
a little bit.
So if you are in the audience right now and you have any idea how I can fix those seemingly impossible to square ideas, please don't do it in the chat right now. Do it in the Discord, in the suggestion box. I will be going there after this to talk to you people about what people who watch the show, not you people. You, oh God,
Oh,
I'm gonna get fired from this.
Yeah,
kind of
you're
show, too.
already fired. You're gonna get double fired.
I hope Mr. Nice Guy's not watching this. But no, I don't want to keep you here for more than already 3 hours to help me fix my show. So I'm just gonna say thank you so much for being
Of
the
course,
guinea pig
man.
on this first episode of what will hopefully be a long-running series of interviews. And now I want to give you the opportunity. Please tell everybody. And we've already discussed your multiple shows. A few times we've touched upon them during the course of this show, but please tell everybody where they can find you online and what they should be listening to in regard to your shows.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Moanarger. That's Moahnarger. It's a spoonerism of my first and last name. You can follow me on Instagram at Noah.Marger. That's Noah, D-O-T, Marger. You can listen to both of my podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get those things. I got 2 podcasts. One of which Jake has appeared on multiple times. Can you see my finger? Perfect. Okay. One of which Jake has appeared on multiple times. Look at him. He's right there. That's called It's on the List. It's a podcast about underrated music, movies, and much, much more, which I host with Mason McGuire. We are coming up on a year, actually, of releasing shows, which is crazy to think. And so we'll be releasing a year thing in October. But each week, it's either the 2 of us, it's like blank check style, or we have a guest, and the guest brings on the movie and or the album. We talk about it. We ultimately say, would we recommend it or not? It's fun. Then I host another podcast, which I actually recently just started in May, called My Favorite Podcast, where I bring on people and they get to talk about their favorite things. It could be a movie. It could be an album. It could be a list of songs. It could be a mountain. It could be whatever, as long as it's something that's their favorite thing. I haven't had someone bring on a mountain yet, and I pray that that never happens, but I'm looking at the guy who's about to bring on his favorite fucking mountain. But we have, 14, going to be 15 episodes on the books. The 15th episode comes out on Thursday. We'll be talking about Lady Gaga with Nikki Reifler, so that'll be very fun. And if you want to read some stuff that I'm writing, you can always go to my WordPress, which is just my name, Noah Marger. And then if you follow me on Instagram, I post shorter little things on there as well. I think that's it. You can also follow at YLG. That's actually the period, YLG.world on Instagram, and go to Your Local Government YouTube to watch some comedy skits that I do with my friend Fed. We haven't posted anything in a while, mostly with me not being in California right now, but I hope to be back on that soon. I don't have any updates about when that might be. We are in talks right now, me and Fed, to figure that out. And I do this show whenever they ask me to, and so I do this show whenever that occurs, and so you can watch me on here as well. And Jake, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, thank you for coming on. Aiden Wood says that they would like to be a guest on your podcast, so I'm gonna let you guys connect on that. Maybe connect in the Discord. Speaking of the Discord, if you don't already, please join our Discord for Everything Now show. There's a link to it in the panels below. It seems like everybody in the chat right now is a regular who is already part of the Discord. But if for some reason you're watching this for the first time, Everything Now show is an improvised comedy show. Typically, I'm not going to bore you with the lore ramifications of what we just said, but what I will say is that we've got brand new episodes of our main show, which is an interactive improvised comedy show on Twitch where the audience gets to be part of the show. It's every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. So there will be a new episode tomorrow. Today is Tuesday,
yes,
right?
Chef.
So tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Pacific time, there will be a brand new episode of Everything Now, so check that out. And if you have ideas on how I can fix this show and make it good and better, I'm all ears. I'm gonna be in the Discord after this and the suggestion box so we can hang out and chat and we can just talk. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys tonight. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of it. I won't, because my character in the universe has been fired, which again, can't talk about all that much. But it's a pleasure, Noah. Thank you for having us. Or thank you for being on. You're welcome. Absolutely. For having you. And and I will probably see you. I'll probably talk to you on Twitter later tonight anyway.
I'll talk to you in like 5 minutes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I forgot that I didn't put like a goodbye bumper built into this thing, so now I just have to walk over to the computer and turn it off.
Damn.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, bye everybody.
Yes.